Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the Chris Gethard Show podcast. It's really cool that you're checking this out.
We're about to do, I think, the dumbest show we've done in years.
His life would be trashed! You better believe I'm trashed.
We are scrappy trash people.
What's the point of this show? I just turned it on.
We've always been with this show.
We've always been trash people. We will always be trash people.
It's true.
This doesn't feel real.
Live from my grandmother's basement, we are still the only Chris Gethard Presents podcast in existence. I am Emily Pineapple.
I'm Forrest, the keeper of the Canon.
And we're joined today by an extremely special guest. Anyone listening to this is on the Discord.
I mean, odds are, yeah.
Like, if you're not, how did you find this? I would like to know who's forcing you to listen to this. Get on the Discord. We're here with Uncle B.
Oh, Uncle B.
Uncle B.
Otherwise, Bryson. We can use my full name here.
Bryson.
You guys use your names, right?
Yeah.
Bryson. Bryson Wallace.
Bryson
We'll
Wallace.
do the whole name.
You wanna,
Bryson from California and some TCGS episodes.
you want to do like your whole address?
Oh,
Just
sure.
dox
Yeah,
yourself.
it is
Here.
123
Dox,
Fake
dox,
Street.
dox, dox.
No. It's my pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's so exciting. You're
Yeah.
here in our actual
In your grandmother's
human
basement.
home, in the grandmother's basement, in her basement yourself. And you're here for the holidays.
I am.
And we're going to talk about a TCGS episode. This is a very special episode for two reasons. One being Uncle B's presence.
Why, thank you.
And two being the present of TCGS on YouTube.
And also, just to note, Judge Robin is not here because he has been in Cuba all week.
Is that where he is? I saw
Yeah.
people talking about where he is. And
Yeah.
I just, okay. So he's just continuously in Cuba.
Yep.
He'll be back.
Okay.
but-
If you say so.
He's in Cuba now.
Okay.
Doing a really interesting, like, educational tour with Lady Bug.
Don't give him credit. He's abandoned us all.
This is true.
He rode in a really cool car.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, we're going to learn some things about Cuba, and that will be fun. But before that, we are going to be doing what we had been doing on this podcast.
Yes.
Before CGP, we're going to be recapping an episode of TCGS, and that episode is episode number 14, the drawing episode. The drawing pictures episode, which aired on September 21st, 2011. Can you tell that I'm rusty?
This is episode. Okay, so September. So we're talking. I'm trying to do the math as to like when the show would have started. Did you guys already do episode 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
We started with 1 and then have made it to 13.
Gotcha.
And then mostly stopped to do CGP stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so episode 1. Do we know like what? Because 2011 is when the show started.
Yeah.
So we're talking. We're only 14 weeks at most into, or at least into this thing. I don't know if they took a time off. This is an early. This is. It was fascinating for me to rewatch. I'm just going to say that. I don't know if you have more of an intro, because I just wanted to say.
Yeah.
I realized in watching this to be here with you guys today, I haven't watched early TCGS in a long time.
Yeah. Where do you usually start your rewatches?
Here's the thing. If we're going down this path.
Yeah, this is a good
We're
path.
going down this path.
So I found the show in 2014. So 3 years into the show. I got in around the time of The Human Fish Gets Waxed. So we're talking like sort of later years, public access. They were starting to transition later on into Fusion, and then I went back and I rewatched episodes. But here's a little Uncle B fact for you. I have not watched every single TCGS. I adopted a philosophy that a friend of mine who really loves The West Wing had, which is he never wanted to live in a world where there wasn't more West Wing to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wanted to live in a world where there was always more TCGS to watch. So I've watched a great number of, as you know, there's plenty of TCGS episodes. I've watched a great number of them. Surprisingly, this one that we're talking about today happened to be one that I have not seen before. So today was my first time watching it.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
But specifically, I have not watched all of TCGS because I always wanted there to be like, oh, I am deathly ill. I have specific like desires as to I don't want to watch a movie. I don't want to watch this. I always wanted to live in a world where I could watch TCGS.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. And so we're going to get your like immediate thoughts, like you as yourself now. There's no coloring from the first time that you saw this.
Yeah.
Coloring because it's the drawing episode.
Yeah, you get that one. Yeah, you get that. But I mean, it's wild. I don't want to take over the conversation, but like it was wild to see like a very slow intro to a TCGS. I don't mean a diss with that whatsoever, but it's like it's a very compared to like the
energy.
The energy, yeah. Like True TV and Fusion, obviously they changed up the theme song a couple of times. It's Wednesday night, at least in this episode, very chill. Very chill intro, I thought.
That's been one of the fun things with this show for us too, is getting to see those early episodes again, because I actually also haven't seen all of them.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them also, but not all. And the podcast was partially because we wanted to see them all.
To binge.
And knew that this would be a good way to make it so we do see them all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's these early ones, they're a lot more chill. A lot more chill at the beginning.
A lot
Less
more
chanting.
chill, a lot less chanting. And then like, boy, as much as people complain about Chris on CGP, like taking a bunch of time at the beginning to say like why he chose this comedian to host CGP, boy, our early TCGSs are like, here's this bit that we're doing, and then also here's this bit that we're doing, and also here's this bit that we're doing. And so, yeah, that was definitely a case in this episode.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of fun bits in this episode. Today, our musical guest was G. Wallace, and our panel included Chris Gethard, of course, the human fish, Bethany Hall, once again, Chris's assistant, queen of the top row, Will Hines, who makes his first appearance on this show after being a regular on the stage show, Forrest.
Yes.
I know the name Will Hines.
Sure.
I'm sure that I have seen many things with Will Hines in them.
You have.
Who the fuck is Will Hines?
So on the stage version of TCGS, Will Hines was Gethard's rival, where they would do revenge bits, where they would challenge each other, and each would revenge themselves on the other for the bit. We're going to link some of the videos of the revenges that they've done, but it was like, I think Will Hines rubbed his butt over everything Gethard owned for one of them.
Chris took Will's girlfriend out on a date and filmed it. And then Will, as retribution, took Don Finelli out on a date and filmed it.
And that's the sequence of videos we're actually going to link in the show notes, because that's just like such a fun back and forth.
It's very good. It's very good. If you also, a lot of the America Gethard, I don't know if Bonnaroo Gethard.
Yeah.
Those shorts that predated TCGS, those include a lot of Will Hines. It was like Chris, Shannon, Will, I think Don, and a bunch of, I mean, that's where Riley tagged along as Vacation Jason for a bit. So Will was part of that, the stage production of the crew, and then you would see a bunch of Will in those TCGS sort of shorts that they did that predated the show.
He was also in Between Two Ferns, the movie.
Yeah.
And a role at the end as the assistant for Will Ferrell, who, of course, is also executive producer of The Chris Gethard Show, along with Zach
bringing
Galifianakis.
it back together. Bringing it back.
Dream team. We also had Brian Husky, one of Chris's mentors in comedy, and can be seen in many shows, including Another Period.
Yeah, Another Period was the sort of the Downton Abbey parody on Comedy Central.
He's also in like a series of commercials that I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Yeah,
where he's like heavily featured and like.
Yeah, he shows up in a lot. He's in a lot of places.
Am I wrong in thinking that he looks like the person who voices Archer and Bob from Bob's Burgers?
You are wrong in thinking that. Was that your question?
Am I wrong? Am I incorrect?
Well, you're incorrect. I don't think that you're wrong in thinking it.
Well, you mean, you're incorrect. He's not.
Like,
but you think he looks like H. John Benjamin.
Yes.
Yeah, I think with the glasses on in this episode that he's wearing, I could see what you're getting at there. Most certainly two separate people.
They are definitely separate people.
Exhibit A, the voice.
And Will Hines is not related to, I think it's John Hines from the Howard Stern show. Hit him in the Hines.
Yeah, I don't think that they're related. Will Hines does have a sibling, I believe, in the comedy sphere, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think his brother comes on another episode later where Alana Glazer is on, and Alana's brother is on with her.
siblings.
The sibling rivalry episode. But yeah, I mean, he's been in, let's see, lots of things. He was on the UCB show as the Grim Reaper and a rabbi.
Is this Brian?
This is still Brian. Yes, this is still Brian.
Okay.
He's been on Children's Hospital. He's on Parks and Rec. He's all over the place. On Conan.
Are you on his IMDb?
I'm on his Wikipedia.
You're on his Wikipedia?
Yes.
Go down to like whatever he's working on recently. He's on a show right now that's called like Fuck House or something like that. It's a fake reality show that is supposed to be that they got a bunch of young people together to just get them drunk and have sex with each other. And then I think the premise of the show is that like somebody gets murdered. And then it's an interactive show on like some weird service. Do you have it?
It's not listed on his Wikipedia page, unfortunately.
Maybe I'm not thinking of the right
But
person.
he is in Mr. Neighbor's House too, which is a parody of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Okay, look at that.
And he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, set here in San Francisco.
Look at that, bringing it all together.
Filmed in our area of the city, even.
Literally, the house is on our street.
Yeah, we
really?
We can show
The
you
Ant-Man
Ant-Man's
house.
house very easily.
Shit, show me Ant-Man's house.
Yeah, there's a picture of him and a random child in the bookstore.
I tried to walk
In the
on
book
set when they were here. I was just like, oh, I'm walking on. Like, are you here for whatever the code name was?
Blue-
and I'm
it was like Blue-
it was Blue
Oh,
Dream
yeah.
or something. And I'm like, no.
Blue Dream.
Hey, Brian Husky, though, on Bob's Burgers. So there you go.
There it is. It goes full circle.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to bring this up. Maybe it's The Coop. The Coop might be the name of the show. That's the reality show that everybody's trying to have sex with each other. And I don't know if it's that somebody got murdered or something.
I do love that idea.
That sounds great.
But it's a choose your own adventure show.
Oh.
So you choose who to like interrogate and stuff like that. But it's all like comedians and it's all comedy based.
That sounds super fun.
So good.
Yeah. So anyhow.
We also have on the panel Shannon O'Neill, Don Finelli, once again the sexiest man in Hackensack, New Jersey, and Random Gene, in addition to special guest artists Matt Mayer and the Lone Cornmeal Machine's Maëlle Delavue.
Yes. And Matt is drawing the collars, and Maëlle is drawing Matt drawing the collars.
Yep.
And
We'll
then
get to it later, but like her drawing Matt is such a good bit.
Right?
Yeah.
Such a fucking good bit. And I was cracking up every single time. I love the fact that there's no payoff to it other than it's just going to be, she's still at the same angle of him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's essentially the same drawing, only different formats. So
I love
that bit was like my favorite fucking thing of the episode.
One of my favorite things in the episode was the other bit, don't drop that onion.
Probably the best game of TCGS.
You're calling it the best game
best
of
game?
TCGS.
Yes. I
Over
will stand
catch
by
or
this.
snatch.
Oh no,
over...
I forgot about catch or snatch.
Well, there
I
you
need
go.
to back it up.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Back it up.
No, you've said it already. Don't
can't
drop
take
the
it back.
onion is the best show that TCGS
And
ever
I
did.
would say you should listen back to our episode about the episode with Catch or Snatch where we played our version, Queefer Beef.
I'm looking right now to see if I have queefer beef
Yeah.
on my soundboard.
We played a sound and
Oh,
you had to
boy.
determine if it was a fart or a cow fart?
no.
Or a cow?
It was
What
a cow fart or a queef.
That's right. It was actually a cow fart or a queef.
An ejection of gas from a vagina. Queefer beef.
You went full Siri on defining that right now.
It was way harder than I expected.
If you have it, certainly I'll play along.
Judge Robin won that time.
Yeah, okay. I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
do not have that here, but we will definitely play that again, possibly on an after show.
Oh, yeah,
boy.
that would be the way to do it.
Oh, queefer
But
beef.
the theme for the calls was stuff related to the internet. Have you dated someone online? Have you had a bad experience with the internet? Have you gotten into a fight on the internet?
And that's
Yeah.
the question that I'm going
For
to
us.
ask all of us today, because that's what we do here on
Yeah.
the We Are
questions.
Trash People episodes of our CGP TCGS podcast, the only one that exists.
We're going to have to clean that up.
Only one that exists.
So we're saying you're posing the question of, have you met somebody online? Have you had a bad experience with the internet?
Or a fight on the internet, because Gethard seems to want to talk about a fight on the internet.
That's really what he wants to
He always wants to talk about a fight on these shows. He always wants to talk about a fight on these shows. He's not interested if somebody's dated someone. I'm sure that was pitched to him as an idea, as like, have you dated someone? And he was just like, yeah, but also has people gotten in fights on the internet?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I got in a fight on the internet. Internet dating's whack. No, I mean, I would just say my experiences with the internet, and this will get Gethardy and schmoopy, but like, not to be shameless, but like the Discord for CGP, right? I would say is an example of a good case of the internet, because there are a lot of shitty places on the internet. I have a friend of mine who used to frequent IMDb's message boards, and she would use a pseudonym, and she would get intentionally in fights on IMDb's message boards. She would like throw down on IMDb's message boards, and like if somebody would throw something back at her, she would make up a fact about herself that would justify her argument or something like that, you know? So she was a blank slate. She could lie about whatever she wanted to prove her point, you know? And so she would do that, and she would just get her rocks off arguing on the internet with people. And that is so not my vibe. So as far as like getting in fights with people on the internet, it's just not. She would tell me these stories of like being proud of having trolled or like otherwise gotten in arguments with other similarly shitty people. And every time I'd be like, what do you get out of that?
Is she still your friend?
Yeah, she's legitimately, she's a good person. Just there's elements like that I'm just like, nah.
What do you think about her makes her like that?
She really loves to troll assholes. So it's more so that she's
Targeted.
not doing it. She's not doing it to be an asshole herself, although the ends are the means. But yeah, she more so would go on there just to find like a bigot in the message board.
Oh yeah.
Or like to find some other person that's just being particularly shitty, and she would just be shitty back to them.
I love it.
You know. So that's where it's, I guess I was explaining it a little bit earlier, where you would be like, why are you still friends with that person? But I insist that she was doing not good work, but work. I can't fault her for it.
The Gethheads are really, in general, like my best experience on the internet.
Yeah.
Like the Dum Dum stayed with us because of the internet, and we met him, and he sent us Star Wars toys that he got.
Oh, good. Great.
Afterwards as like a thank you. That was very fun.
Very sweet.
Yesterday I saw my friend get into verbal fights playing a VR sport. That was a great experience for me on the internet.
What VR sport?
It was Echo, I think. You're in zero gravity, and you grab a ledge and like push yourself off a ledge, and anyone near you can hear. And so he would get into fights with all like the teenagers around him who were just like saying mean things.
Yeah, it's like the Ender's Game game. And it was great because he was very aggressive. Like, he was having fun with his aggression. Yeah. But yeah, you can hear what everyone's saying. So he's like, fuck you, bitch. Like, rah. And when Forrest got in the game, it went a little different.
Yeah, I was like, hey, everyone.
Hey, what's up?
And some kid was like, hey, are you new? Because I was like clearly like not playing well. He's like, hey, are you new? And I'm like, I am.
Yeah.
And he just shows me things. And then people start taunting me because I'm like, how do I use my thrusters? And they're like, I'll show you thrusting. And they like grab my character and start like humping in front of me. And I just start cracking up.
That's a good joke.
So like it all happens. And then I caused my team to lose a match because of a weird technical glitch.
Okay.
Where I was like stuck in a tube for too long. So I never played. I never got out of the starting gate.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh no, was I in there the whole time? And they're like, yeah, you were. Even when I caused like my team to lose, they're still just like, yeah. Isn't it funny?
Yeah. You really screwed the pooch on that one.
I did.
Yeah. What delightful little teenagers on the internet.
Yeah, the kids are all right.
A good experience I have on the internet, this isn't with strangers, but a wild thing that made me feel like we live in Westworld was my brother's very into video games. I'm not so much. But he and I both bought Red Dead Redemption 2.
Ooh.
And so we both went on the online mode. We both created old men characters.
Ooh.
Like in their late 60s. and we named both of our old men the same last name, which is like a family name from our family tree, and then we both picked first names that were old ancestors of ours. And so we're sort of like playing Red Dead under the thought that our characters are distant relatives of ours, from the Wild West.
Yeah.
And so we made them brothers. They're the Rausch brothers. You'll see them online sometimes. We're a guild called the Rausch Brothers. It's only the two of us. And we'll log on. We live far away from one another. We live about 6 hours away from each other. And so we'll log on and we'll just go hunting together. And so as far as like stuff related to the internet, I know that the show was trying to get to like kind of bad stuff, but something that made me feel like Westworld is that my brother and I basically do the Westworld thing of like downloading yourself to a Western world and then go and hang out and do whatever the fuck you want. And there are some people that can go around and just kill the whole town, and we'll stroll in with our horses and we'll see that somebody's murdered the whole town, or we'll just go out and just hunt deer, pick flowers.
Oh,
That's adorable.
yeah, that's so wholesome.
Yeah, and that's what we do to keep up. We got the little headsets on. We're talking.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Go video games.
Yeah, the internet can be a good place too.
The internet, I mean, yeah. This wasn't the thesis, I think, of this TCGS.
No.
But the internet could be a fun place. You could go to chat roulette and see a bunch of dicks.
That's true.
You could meet Joe from Queens, or you could go out hunting with your brother. Or you could join Planet Scum and talk with some very lovely people.
Join us.
I have something that gets to Chris's intended theme.
Oh, yeah?
I had a fight on the internet. I had one fight on the internet, and it still makes me sick to my stomach when I think about it. Online fighting, I hate online fighting. I haven't been in internet communities because of how awful it makes me feel. It was about SSRIs. Like a friend of mine posted saying that she has finally come to the conclusion after lots of therapy and talking to doctors that she needs to go on some sort of antidepressant. And she was asking people who had been through the experience to share from their experience what it was like, so that they could, so that she could, I don't know, like, it's nice. You like hear from other people, like what worked for them, what didn't work for them. People were doing that. It was beautiful. This worked for me. This ended up being the wrong choice for me.
Yeah.
You know, and then just some awful person who decided to tell her that it was like the worst possible thing and it will destroy her life forever. And a nice woman responded like, hey, I think your comment is irresponsible. It actually ended up saving my life. It's not the right thing for everyone, but... And she just responded like, you will destroy your life if you do this. And I'm like, that's incredibly rude of you.
Yeah.
I have qualifications, and I not only have experience, but qualifications to tell you why what you're saying is rather cruel and irresponsible.
Yeah.
And she just like fucking mocked me. It was really bad.
Like it's still publicly.
Yeah. Just bouncing everywhere. Just like, oh, I'm Emily Pineapple. I got a degree in psychology.
Oh, yeah.
Like, fuck you. Like, I know that this isn't the case. Like, Post's first article that you can find on Google when you type in why SSRIs are bad, which happens to be a doctor who sells supplements.
Yeah,
so
course.
I'm like explaining this to her like a person who thinks I'm talking to a person. And just dug myself in a hole. I dug myself in a really bad emotional hole that whole day, just arguing with this woman over like, you are not doing what this girl asked for. This girl asked for personal stories and opinions. That's specifically what she asked for. She goes, I don't have to whore out my whole life in order to respond to her. Like, no, but specifically that is what she asked for. And the poor girl wasn't online that day. Like, she was working. So I like messaged her. I'm like, I don't know if what I'm doing is
Isn't it wild
wrong.
when the internet like spirals out of control while like a person is gone for like 2 minutes? You know? Yeah.
And it was, so I learned a lot that day about digging oneself into a hole with people who are not arguing from the same position that you are and how difficult
You were
it
arguing
is.
with a brick wall. I would say
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers on this, but I would generally say that 100% of the people who are batshit crazy on the internet are always going to post a link backing up their argument that in some way sells supplements. You know, like everything that my aunt posts that's definitely not true. That I end up sending her like a Snopes or like some other like source back to her being like, hey, this is why this isn't true. She'll always post something back that it is somebody trying to sell a supplement. That's what I would what I would hazard to guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, she did get kicked out of that group by the girl once she got back.
Was this a Facebook group?
It was a Facebook group
Yeah,
made
those are
by
tough.
my friend who posed the question.
That's just a ban.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just a
she did.
right out ban.
I felt vindicated, but I hadn't really internalized like how it's such a lonely feeling. You can't see anyone else. You can't see that person, and so you can't control how your message is being received, which is a hard thing for me because a lot of how I talk to people is I'm just like, you know, words, facts, things. Like I'm so verbal that like I will sound like a dick unless like you can hear me.
Yeah.
Like that's what I do to be like, no, I'm really not trying to be a dick here. Like, please stop me. Like if this is too much for you.
I'm not excusing this person. I'm not even going to remotely suggest that they are any less of a dick than it sounds like they are. But I imagine that if you and that same person had been in a living room together with the same batch of people from the Facebook group for the purposes of talking about the same topics.
Yeah.
If this thing had come up, you would have said your piece to whatever they had interjected that still would have been just as problematic.
Yeah.
And then they would have either been like, and moved on or not. And the weird thing about the internet is that there's no and move on.
Yep.
There is no, here's all of the reasons that I am right.
Yep.
And fuck you for remotely saying opposite, you know?
Yeah.
That relates to my bad experience on the internet, which is being someone who likes Star Wars.
I think you could just leave it
That's
there.
it. Yeah, that's it. That's my bad experience on the internet.
Well, and I would say too that like the same friend of mine that did IMDb message boards and would just like honestly, it took me a while to realize that the comment section on the internet like was as much of a thing as it was. I have two friends that live and die by the comment section. If I send them a YouTube video that like speaks to me, and if I'm like, oh, check this out, watching a YouTube video to them, the experience is not over until you've watched the YouTube video, and more likely than not, while it's still playing, scroll down and see the comment section, which that synapse does not connect in my brain. I do not have the thing to even look at comments on an Instagram post or anything. That doesn't register for me. And I would say that I'm blissfully unaware because of that. That might be a little bit of ignorance is bliss, and that might be a little bit of whatever, but yeah, you'll get wrapped up in the comments.
It is. And it's really interesting. And I mean, I learned later that the ways in which I was responding are like the exact opposite thing that you should do if you want to engage with someone who has an opposing viewpoint as you on the internet, because of how it feels psychologically to have, you know, to have response in a certain way when you're behind a computer and things. But I find that very interesting, and I have some research. I have some research at the end of this recap.
Okay.
To sort of answer Chris's question, because Chris's big question here is, why are people shitty on the internet?
Yeah.
Why do people choose to be shitty on the internet?
I'll interject here real quick to say, if your question is why are people shitty on the internet, and if your concern is that people are shitty on the internet, join Planet Scum, because if they're shitty on the internet, we just fucking boot them.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's
So
I talk about that in my research too.
Wow.
How to create a nice community. And I was thinking about Planet Scum when I was doing this research months ago. But let's get into the episode. Let's give the people.
Let's do it.
Get the people what they came for. I have something on these notes. You're gonna peek behind the curtain, listeners. Things that are italicized can be read or referred to by what is it, Forrest?
I think
Keeper
so.
of the Canon. Things that are pink are things that I have audio for.
I think I was underlined. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And things that are underlined, if you would like to take those.
Sure.
Uncle B.
You got it.
And I'll take the things that are in bold. So now that you've seen Behind the Curtain, everyone, start your own Chris Gethard Presents podcasts.
Yeah, you know exactly how it's done now.
Yeah, you know exactly how it's done now, and we will help you. So that we are no longer the only Chris Gethard Presents podcast, even though we are.
Join us. So the episode opens with Chris asking how Brian Husky is doing, and Brian immediately critiques Chris's asking of that, which I just love because that really sets up the dynamic for the episode. And then the first human fish question is awakenings versus hauntings.
Awakenings versus hauntings.
Awakenings versus hauntings. Who wins?
Awakenings.
Awakenings. Wow.
Wow.
Okay, I would agree with that.
I like hauntings.
I like awakenings.
Oh boy, am I going to be the... Oh, well, I mean, Fish has already said awakenings.
Fish definitively answered, but...
Yeah. I mean, awakenings. I don't want to be haunted.
Exactly. I'd like to awaken.
That's fair. I think I like hauntings because it's in the past, so you can think through clues as to like what it is and what's going on, whereas an awakening is in the future and you don't know what's going to be there.
Awakening is opportunity, and an awakening is like opening your eyes to some sort of new truth. But you, however, you want to dwell on the past and be scared of like spooky shit.
Yeah.
I suppose I am quite afraid of spooky shit.
You don't do the spooky shit. You don't do a haunted house at Halloween time.
Fuck.
No.
I do none of those things. I love hearing the plots of horror movies.
You don't watch them.
I don't watch them. I read the plot.
You read the Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I watch the scariest scenes, but like on YouTube, on my phone, far away from me.
Okay.
So I can like choose when to
and
engage
you're still
more.
choosing a haunting over an awakening?
I have a dream in my heart since I was a child because I feared these things, so I looked up occult shit and had to deal with it, right? In the occulty way. So I have this dream in my heart that were I ever approached by a ghost or a demon or a scary thing, like I would know how to deal with it. So I think like, oh, I'm going to defeat this. I'm going to work through this haunting.
Yeah. But
quash it, and that's a power fantasy.
So you feel as though that you could take on a ghost and or a demon, but you can't handle seeing It Chapter 2 in theaters.
Fuck it.
Okay.
Well,
Fuck it. You know?
And throughout the episode, fans will be sending in images that'll get displayed on the TV. And the first one is a rage comic mocking Joe from Queens, speaking of monsters.
Of Shannon shitting into someone's mouth. Yeah. So that's shitting into someone's mouth. That's good.
And that's the second one, right? Or is that the first one?
I think the first one is the rage
That's the first
comic.
one. That's the first one. Okay. I love that. I love that the audience is now going after Joe from Queens. And then Chris apologizes when he introduces Mael.
Let's also bring out our friend Mael Dalavu. Hello. How are you? Mael, I'm sorry that I always at least slightly mispronounce your name.
So do I.
I also apologize because I'm sure I did.
She's awesome. So Mael Dalavu, because we haven't done one of these episodes for fucking ever, she has done all sorts of cool art things. Besides Lone Cornmeal Machine, she worked for fucking Google, Twitch.
She was an artist in residence at Kickstarter.
Fuck.
Oh, hell yeah.
Fuck.
She's, amazing as hell in all these, any contribution she had to TCGS, it was wild.
And she has like really cool paper cut comics that she makes and everything. Like her work of art, her work is so cool.
You guys have talked about Lone Cornmeal, like the process on here, right?
Yes, we sort of mentioned it, but I think it's absolutely worth going into.
I know that we talked about it after on like an after show one time.
I think we mostly talked about it on the Connor Ratliff episode of the CGP pod.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that was the one.
I think that's where we talked into it.
Yeah. So that was just what she would animate, right?
Or take footage of something, animate, use clay.
She would take basically, she would put together random clips, and then Connor would edit it together, right?
Yeah.
With his voice.
And then he would add his voice.
Yeah.
So it was like sort of a collaborative thing, but it wasn't done like together necessarily. It was a sort of separate collaboration.
Yeah, it's a very exquisite corpse in a lot of ways.
And it might have been covered on here already, forgive me, but the purpose of Lone Cornmeal Machine and like in this episode, the purpose of Connor Ratliff's bit that we'll get to later is literally they, in order to record the show, they could only fit it on 2 tapes. So the Lone Cornmeal Machine existed so that they could pause the episode, put in a new tape, and start recording the episode again, and then they would edit in Lone Cornmeal Machine.
So if you were in the studio, did you see Lone Cornmeal Machine?
Not necessarily. Yeah. I think down the line they ended up working it out to where they definitely, I mean, you see it on the show. They point to the TV and it switches to Lone Cornmeal Machine. But in some of the early years, they would just be like, and here's this Lone Cornmeal Machine. And then when they come back, you notice that they don't really talk about what happened on Lone Cornmeal Machine. Or like I noticed on this Connor Ratliff, they don't really mention anything that he said in his thing. And it's because they were just like, here's this Connor Ratliff video, or here's this Lone Cornmeal Machine. And then they would just be like, okay, and now the things happen. All right, thank you, the next thing. And it was just so that they could record the episode on 2 tapes so that they could put it on YouTube.
That's incredible. Yeah. Very incredible.
But that gets away from the fact that she's fantastic and her bit here and her talent in general is amazing.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy to see her draw, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, just with different medium over the course of the episode from the same angle.
It's so quickly, too.
Yeah.
Because you can tell from CGP as well that timing for that sort of thing of like, okay, you're going to draw the callers, but you don't know how long the phone call is going to be. Some of these phone calls are very short.
Yeah.
So both of them have to draw in potentially very quick intervals.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times when it's hang up and move on, it's like nobody gave the cue to anybody for what affects them. So it's just like, okay, we're done with that call. What does that caller look like? And I'm sure that Matt was like, I didn't fucking finish this drawing. And I know that they get that now on CGP too, where they're just like, okay, we're done with this call. Let's go to Skype. And they'll be like, we don't have Skype ready. You didn't say that we were on a Skype next. So.
And then Chris intros, don't drop that onion, which we mentioned earlier. They have to hold an onion, and if they drop their hand, they will wear a children's Halloween costume on their head. And I love it. Chris says it's the worst game since Human Crane. This didn't result in any near neck breaking, so maybe it's better than Human Crane, I would say.
It didn't come back, though, like Human Crane.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Human Crane came back, though, with cool tech, and it was
with
really
a budget,
awesome.
With a budget. Oh, did I miss my part?
That's okay, because we kind of talked about it.
Yeah.
But we think that the onion, it's a tribute to the Dolchnikov Brigade.
Oh, Chris says it's
onions. Oh, he says
it's a tribute to the Dolchnikov Brigade.
And that's when we have our first caller.
Yeah, the first caller is Christy. She describes herself as pretty energetic, and she has brown hair.
Which I thought was a super dick move.
What, just to make it that much detail and not go into any more?
Yeah.
It's a super dick move, but also perfect for public access TCGS.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm energetic, draw me. I mean, later on we'll get to it. Somebody is just like, I've been bitten by a jellyfish or whatever. Like, yeah, that's exactly how that bit's supposed to go. Matt asks if she has a big nose. She says no. She has a normal sized nose. That's great. Chris says he'll have to draw her based on being energetic. The internet thing that she has is she went on chat roulette with her friends, which grown like from the get-go. If you hear especially a female say, oh, my shitty internet thing is I went on chat roulette, you're like, oh, I know exactly what this story is. The first or second time they were talking to someone and realized they were chatting to a robot, it was the scariest thing ever. Chris says, yeah, but it's better than seeing endless dicks, right? Which talking to somebody, have you guys had like a customer service experience?
Oh, yes.
Where you do the chat thing on there and you're just like, oh, this is most certainly a robot that I'm talking to.
Oh,
yes.
And the like robocalls have gotten good too, where they do like a hello.
When I worked as a customer service agent, people like regularly accused me of being a robot.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'd be doing something else at the same time. So I had like a standard and she's like, hi, you've reached company. This is Emily Pineapple. How can I help you?
Yeah.
Like just every time they're like, who the fuck is this? I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm sorry. This is a human.
This
I
is
promise.
a human person. I am talking to you.
I have feelings.
Yeah.
That's what a robot would say.
But yeah, I had in my notes of the fact that another shameless Planet Scum plug, which is we just installed a shit ton of bots.
Oh,
there,
yeah.
So
Oh,
by
yes.
all means, go and talk to our bots.
They're incredible. They tell you verses.
Yeah.
There's human fish verses.
Yeah, you can go in there. You can ask the human fish a question.
There's a
and-
bunch of things that'll just make GIFs.
Yeah, we added a bunch of automated GIFs so that I didn't have to go looking for the URLs every time. And we added a Joe Para bot, which is unrelated to CGP, but it was too good. And links in Discord almost single-handedly put together the Joe Para bot, which I think is fantastic. So
Tell us what the Joe Parabot does.
the Joe Para bot, if you nicely ask a moderator within Planet Scum to add a particular action, a mod, depending on the request, will add the action to our Joe Para bot. And then at any point in Planet Scum, if you're feeling lonely, you can just put in exclamation point para, and Joe Para will do something with you. So you say para, and then a little Joe Para GIF will emerge, or not GIF, emoji will show up, and then it'll say like Joe Para goes to the DMV with you, or Joe Para slices apples with you, or Joe Para gives 0 fucks with you.
That's adorable.
So it's Joe Para blinks with you. We can add actions, and at any point, I just love mainly I saw it being used like in the overnight hours when we have a lot of Australians that are in the chat.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they'll just be by themselves. So they'll
With Joe Para.
They'll tag Joe Para, and Joe Para will, will pick flowers with them or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, that was her internet thing, chat roulette. I never went on chat roulette myself.
I did.
You did?
I did.
Zero
Yeah.
dicks.
0 dicks?
I also never
Yeah.
got dicks.
We ended up with like a middle school girl, like
Yeah.
eventually, and she was just fucking around with friends, as were we. We're just like, this is not fun.
This is TCGS related. Did you guys participate in the I Can Has chat ever?
No.
Back in the day. Were you not aware of this?
I watched a lot of I Can Has cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Scrolled. I did a lot of scrolling.
If you guys aren't familiar with this is going to become a little section of this episode.
Oh,
real
yeah.
quick. Hold on. In the Fusion era of the show, they started a chat room on a website called I Can Has Chat. This website was a very rudimentary chat service. It was not nearly as functional as any other chat service that you could use. You had plenty of options. They didn't do that. They went to this weird fucking website called I Can Has Chat. The virtue of I Can Has Chat is that it had a chat box, and people would use weird, aliases on there. And they would chat 24/7. That's what they called the 24/7 chat. That's what the Discord is sort of the spiritual successor of, is this I Can Has chat. It was a 24/7 chat where Gethard fans could chat. In addition to that, on the left side of your screen in the browser, there would be a grid of squares, and you could turn on your webcam at any time, and your webcam would show up as a little square, so multiple people could come on with their webcams and just talk.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so people would hang out there. When the show was on Fusion, they would live stream it on Facebook, and then everybody would hang out on the I Can Has chat to watch it, or they would do events where they would dress up fancy certain nights, and then everybody would just be on their and there's screenshots that are still on the internet of everybody hanging out.
Yeah.
I used to go on there, and this is Todd from Pittsburgh used to be on there.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day, Bobby from North Carolina, I want to say.
Is that the Bobby who calls in on this episode?
I don't believe it's the Bobby that calls into this episode. I thought that, but there were all these people who were on the chat. I used to go in there. For anybody listening who might be an old TCGS person, I used the name Coco Beware because I didn't trust the website, so I made a specific username for that. I would go on there. I literally demanded that a guy who had his webcam up and you could see the cupboards in his kitchen.
Yeah.
I demanded that everybody name things, and he would have to produce them from his kitchen.
Oh, I love
so
that.
he kept saying tortilla chips, and then he would go and he would grab tortilla chips, and we would be like, "Oh, baking powder!" And
Oh, wow.
so it was weird because you could have that video element to it. purpose of the website, though, was not TCGS. There were other chat rooms on this website. One time I was in the chat room late at night with a friend, and we were just chatting, and this person comes in and they're just like, what's this room? And we were just like, oh, this is the room for the Chris Gethard show. And they were just like, oh, have you guys been to the Masturbatorium?
Whoa.
This website, and old TCGS people already know this. This website was primarily for people to go on, and all of those little squares,
They're all masturbating together.
were for people to put on their webcam and masturbate together.
That's so cute.
And so,
What a beautiful, like, safe sex way to do a, like, communal sexual experience for people for whom that is a desire.
sure.
It's safe. You can always turn it off.
But that was always
That's so lovely.
that was always the funny aspect of, like, this was the core of the TCGS community at the time, was using this website, but it was like it
Mostly
was
for
primarily this website was primarily for people to jerk off together.
Oh, wow.
We were using it for a comedy community, fan community around the TCGS. And so that's why, like, now us being on Discord, it doesn't have the masturbating aspect of it, but we're using a platform that's intended for video gaming for the purposes of a fan community around a comedy show. So that's just what we've had a good laugh about.
I wish I'd known about that back then. I was just on Facebook trying to, like, typing stuff into the comments.
This was in addition to Gethheads on Facebook. The chat room still exists. Nobody's there.
No.
But the chat room still exists. So you can go to icanhaschat.com/TCGS and it'll take you there.
I'm sad that I did not know the word masturbatorium at this moment.
It's a good word.
It's a good word.
Welcome
It's
to
a
the
good word.
masturbatorium.
Yeah.
The branding on that channel was great.
It was great, and at that point I don't know why you need a text box, but that they had it, and that was. But like, if you go to the homepage of that website, it's like, I don't think the Masturbatorium is shown on the homepage, but it's like all smoke weed every day chat rooms, and then a TCGS chat room. So to this day, front page of Icon Has Chat, I believe, still has the TCGS room on the front, because it's just based off of who used it. Nobody really used this website.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love that.
Anyway.
So our next human fish question back in the episode was aliens versus alien abductees. And alien abductees won.
Underdog.
Yes. Chris was surprised by this. And Will said, well, not in the short term, at least. But that's assuming that being abducted by an alien is an unpleasant experience of being, examined Lovecraftian style by unknowable beings.
Do you think that it's a pleasant experience?
I mean, look, like in Stargate, they were abducted.
Don't say,
really
okay,
nice
look
alien.
in Stargate to me. You're not allowed to say, okay, look in Stargate.
In a Farscape, he gets abducted a lot. And sometimes John Crichton has a bad times, but other times he gets to, like, party with a dude who looks like Chewbacca.
Okay. But I mean,
like,
the
alien
90s,
bars.
the 90s interpretation of being abducted by aliens was just like, UFO comes, light beam goes, woo, 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 you come up, and then you get sodomized. Like, that is...
It was much more of the South Park.
Yeah, it's the South Park. It's the South Park take. It's every, like, 90s movie about alien abduction was always, the joke was that, you're going to have some sort of probe up somewhere that you don't want it.
Or eaten.
Eaten.
With the recipes from that cookbook.
To serve man.
Yeah.
Or that thing on your face. That
yeah.
another one jumps out of your stomach.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's like hauntings for me.
Oh, damn.
I'm like, you know what? I think I could probably convince them to be my friend.
You love conceptually spooky things.
I really love conceptual.
You don't want to experience them, but you like that they're
concept,
there.
yeah.
Like, knowing that spooky stuff is out there is reassuring for you.
Yeah. It's like, I'm about to make a reference that I don't understand. That's me. Courage the Cowardly Dog, isn't it? Like the grandparents don't know that spooky shit's happening all the time, right? Mm-hmm. But Courage is always like freaking out about it. You're blissfully unaware of the spooky shit going on, but if you knew that it was going on, you'd be like, yeah, just don't involve me.
Oh yeah. I want him to sit right here and look at it like a cat. So Matt's drawing of Christy, who described herself as pretty energetic and has brown hair, is just a smirking face, like a nose, eyes, mouth. And Mael offers a realistic drawing of Matt. It's like a portrait style, outline. She mostly goes outlines when she's drawing, which was interesting because I have tended to draw from like inside out, where she's drawing from outside in.
I definitely do inside out a lot. Yeah, so that is interesting.
I also wrote down in my notes that this whole bit of like drawing somebody based off of the way that they describe themselves, this is obviously a precursor to a True TV or Fusion episode, which is the not the genital chamber, right? Yeah, the genital chamber.
Yeah,
the genital chamber where they describe the genitals of a caller, and then Abby Jacobson had to draw them. So there's a lot of things that you see in early public access episodes were things that they pulled to do Fusion episodes and true episodes. So this is definitely like, oh, how do we make that idea bigger? And it was, oh, let's not make it them describing themselves. Let's describe their genitalia.
Fuck yes, it's like that. And
I wonder if the Joe from Queen's art helped inspire that, because that was the butthole.
Oh, true.
Art.
And you talked about Human Crane came back with a bigger budget. Yeah. So like this is one of those precursors that you see pulled off with an actual show budget.
And Human Crane even repeated on on public access.
Yeah.
Again. So that's the fun part. Human Crane is like one of the standard go-to, because arguably the Geth Flex was even kind of Human Crane.
That's what I was thinking of as Geth Flex was Human Crane-ish, and the Duck Hunt. Yeah. Like they took Human Crane and they were like, how do we make it not just Human Crane? And Duck Hunt ended up being the thing.
Love Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
And at this point, we've been playing the Onion game, which Shannon mocks Chris for not thinking it through. And
there's no stakes, is what's said.
Yeah, there's no stakes. So she just fucking drops her onion like a G, like the true chaos goddess she is. And her costume's just a chicken head. Yeah.
And once that came out, I think everybody just realized like, oh, it's not like a baby outfit that I have to like squeeze my whole body in. Right. Why am I holding this onion?
Yeah.
Why is this a thing?
Why? So more art has also come in at this point, mostly mocking Joe from Queens. One just saying, I drew this. Ballsy. I appreciate them. And this guy, Curtis Rutherford, drew like a Simpson-y portrait of Chris, and it was really good.
Yeah, so, that was good.
And
good job, man.
Still on Twitter at actually Curtis.
Yeah, so check out their cool art.
I was going to say that the Twitter functionality in this episode is really fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's classic early public access TCGS where they're just like zoomed in on a website that has like a bunch of ads on it, and like they could have done that a little bit more with more finesse. Yeah. But like, just ask people to tweet things, and then Matt Porter's in the back of the room. He'll just bring it up on the TV up there. It's so fucking good. I mean, I know that we had some stuff, I think with Elegance Hour, or no, there was another episode where we asked people on CGP to like send in stuff on tweets.
Oh, it was the Martin Urbano's ones where he's like, a woman is like a fine wine.
What else?
Blank.
And then chemistry class had the voting for which couple should be at the end of the episode in front of the green screen on their vacation.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we have Discord and everything, but it made me think of like pitching to them this Twitter thing that they were doing on TCGS. They should pitch that to somebody who has a show that might use it, that might find some use out of it.
That could be really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And then
that's when Jean loses as well.
Yes.
Because she was using her hand to hold up her arm. And
of course, Random Jean gets the crown.
Yeah.
I do love that.
She got a crown, and that's how Chris felt about it.
There was no need for you to point that out.
No.
I find it really interesting seeing how Chris relates to the randoms over time and how he changes over time. And I think it's the next episode that's Jean's last episode.
Oh, yeah, 15 weeks.
Yeah.
And I wrote a song.
Oh, yeah.
Is it next week's episode? Because she called in the second episode.
Oh, yeah, no, there's two more. You're right. I think it's two more.
I think in the next one they announce that she's going to be gone. But I wrote a song for her. So eventually, if and when we do more of these TCGS episodes,
have a song.
I will have a song for all of you. It's the candle in the wind.
Yeah, episode 16 is her final episode.
Oh boy.
But yeah, that's when we get a fun caller.
And it's Alyssa checking in. And Alyssa has just turned 16. And of course, that leads to Shannon's very great, awkward conversation that I love. I just love seeing Gethard respond to Shannon goading Alyssa with comedy.
Yeah. Chris is doing the classic Gethard bit of saying what he doesn't want to happen to ensure that it happens.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then Shannon points out that 16 is legal in some states, and I'm pretty sure if you're in Oklahoma, someone could fuck your tang, which is
I missed that line. Damn.
very great. Like that's such a classic Shannon quote.
Yeah.
Because it's just right in that edge of like, maybe I can
The
get
use
away
of the
with
word
this.
tang
Tang
is the
is-
most Shannon-y part of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Gene points out, well, if you're in Nevada, you can get married like Courtney Stodden, which is a name I have not heard in a long time.
Who the fuck is Courtney Stodden?
I can't. I know. I recognize the name. I have no fucking idea.
She got married.
She got married.
I think she was famous
she a baby?
for.
She was a child bride.
Yeah, essentially. She was 16 and married a 51-year-old actor.
Oh, so she probably
gnome?
wanted to marry the actor.
Oh, was it that weird guy?
I mean, sort of by definition.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, I'll look it up
It's
later.
Doug Hutchinson.
Oh yeah, that name.
Doug Hutchinson. If you're interested in ending child
He played
brides,
Percy Wetmore. Ooh, that was a pop. He played Percy Wetmore in The Green Mile.
Okay, good to know.
So think about that next time you watch The Green Mile.
donate to children, not brides.
Alyssa apologizes because she doesn't have anything to talk about. And Chris says, you know what? You're really nice. And then Shannon continues to make her uncomfortable, it's just great. And this is the episode that has one of my favorite Alyssa moments where Dawn offers to help Alyssa with her math homework.
Yeah.
And then Shannon is just immediately like, that is weird. Why are you like, that sounds creepy, being like, DM me, 16-year-old girl.
I'll help you with your homework.
And
No,
then
it was Gene that said that she DM'd.
They both did.
Oh, they both.
I
Oh,
think-
yeah.
Oh, no.
John DMs her?
No, sorry. Wait,
Yeah.
no, on the previous episode, Dawn had offered to help her do her homework, and
Gotcha.
Jean had also offered, and then Jean is the one who's been DMing and taking her up on
Yeah.
it. Dawn offered, but didn't. I don't think that Alyssa took Dawn up on the offer. I think Alyssa reached out to Jean.
I don't see Don DMing
No, he would definitely not DM.
in general. Yeah.
But I think he really would have helped her with her
Oh,
homework.
100%.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He
At this
says-
point, everybody's like in love with Alyssa.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very sweet offer.
Yeah.
And then Brian Husky says, hey, drop out of high school and go hit the comedy clubs if you want to make it in comedy.
Leave your house, live
Yes.
with roommates,
Yes.
live in Brooklyn and downtown New York
Yeah.
with roommates as a 16-year-old. Definitely do it.
And uncharacteristically, Chris says don't.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was...
Usually it's a cut class, smoke grass vibe at TCGS.
But this is that earlier public access era where Chris is very worried about upsetting the parents of any teenagers who are attending,
Oh, yeah.
which I love. I love...
Andres comes to town on the train and fucking gets his head shaved bald and lies to Chris to say that his mom said it was cool, and then he goes home and his mom's pissed.
Yeah, I love that too.
The best.
Yeah.
We get a nice thing from Brian Husky about Alyssa.
You're a good sport, but you know what? You're part of a bit that you can't get out of.
That
She's
was
trapped.
Yeah, and I mean, she doesn't listen to him and yet has 3 busy Debras.
And
Yes.
I don't know if you guys caught this later on. You get 2 out of 3 Debras in this episode.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Did not catch it.
Sandy was one of the drawings that was submitted on Twitter. You can see her Twitter handle, and you can see that Sandy of the 3 busy Debras. So you got 2 out of 3 Deborah representation in this episode.
Wow, so early too.
Yeah.
And Chris feels bad because, he assured Alyssa's mom that it would all be fine.
Okay, and then the human fish lowers his hand and starts eating his onion. Just
Like
straight
an
up
apple.
bites into it like an apple. Chris also puts his arm down, is now wearing a bunny hat. The fish gets a dog hat. Very mild costuming.
Yeah.
Very mild costuming. The stakes for this are very, very low. And then everybody just drops. Will puts his hands down. Bethany's down. Don't Drop the Onion is almost over in a mere 10 minutes into the episode. Don is down. And then Bethany gets the coolest mask of all, which is just a ninja mask.
Yeah, no, Bethany had no stakes at all.
Oh, yeah. And then halfway through wearing it, she just pulled the top part of it down, and it was just covering the lower part of her mouth. Yeah. Will gets a pig hat. Don gets an elephant hat. Husky keeps his hand up because he's trying to create viral content. He thinks holding an onion for 2 minutes is going to go viral real quick. I think it was actually, he said 10 minutes.
Oh, he said 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I think I misheard that.
Yeah. He was like, he wanted viral content. So 10 minutes of him holding an onion, he thought would really pop off on the internet. Don gives a shout out because part of his conversation with Alyssa was saying that he had an engineering degree, right? Yep. And that he's here sitting and holding a fucking onion on public access.
Industrial engineering.
From there you go.
Lehigh University. Which is apparently an extremely good university.
And you know what? Don's on public access holding an onion up.
It's true.
You know?
That just goes to show you, like, when someone tells you...
Cut class, smoke grass.
Cut class, smoke grass. Don't ever be impressed by someone's fucking college. Just don't.
Slow Hat sent in a drawing of Abe Lincoln saying, I love deer. Is this a thing I don't know?
I was confused by that one. That was part of why I mentioned it, because I didn't understand why that was the art sent in.
Yeah.
And I was wondering...
Maybe they just doodled it in class that day and were like, fuck, I need to send something in.
Yeah, let me send in this Abraham Lincoln doodle that I made while not paying attention in class today. I'm trying to think. I think this might be the section where you see... I don't know if you have in the notes here. Sandy's drawing that she had... How do you say her last name? Honing...
I'm not actually sure. I think that's correct.
And her drawing is of random Gene doing the splits.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
the amazing moment, starting the tradition of the splits being a surprise element to anything that Chris Gethard does.
Very true. Very
including the Carmen Christopher episode.
Annie Donnelly has dropped 2 splits on CGP.
Yeah.
And she's got an episode coming up, so look out for that.
That's gonna be so good.
Someone else sends in a drawing of Chris with a penis for a nose. Husky, the last man holding his onion up, goes down. He gets a baby hat and a bib, which is the worst costume.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah.
And the game is... Chris mentions that the game's already over before their first musical break, which is real good. G. Wallace is the musical guest they throw to next. And he's part of the Slang Corp crew.
They were on a previous episode.
Were they?
I think they were on the Wifflebat Gang episode as the musical guest, and so it was a nice little tie back then.
I noticed in the credits said Cypha Sounds, so I don't know if this was was the episode right before this had Cypha Sounds?
Yeah, yes. Cypha was on the previous week, and Emily, I should say, compared it to a Beanie Baby, where the misprint makes it more valuable.
Yeah, I think we had it on CGP. It's just that they didn't update the credits file, and so you just have last week's credits, you know? But you're right. It makes it more valuable. TCGS number 14. That's on everybody's price sheets as spiked. Rob Malone dances to G. Wallace, clad in a Banana Man costume. Rob and Keith have switched costumes.
Yeah. I loved that. That was so strange to see. But
the whatchamacallit, Evel Knievel, World's Greatest Dancer outfit.
I was thinking, like, wow, Banana Man just learned how to dance really well all of a sudden.
Yeah, he suddenly became quite possibly the world's greatest dancer.
Yeah, like I'm just like, because we had the dance battle episode before and like really saw how he danced.
Yeah.
And how he tried to dance with Bethany.
Yes, he skanks. That's
he's
good.
Skanks. That's what he does.
She's a much better dancer than him.
Oh, Bethany, of course.
Bethany was so good in the dance battle episode.
Yeah.
Of course. No, Keith is a proud, awkward American. G. Wallace is so fast. Husky wants clarification that Wallace is saying actual words. G. Wallace is particularly fast.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane.
And it also reminded me, again, I haven't watched early TCGS in a while, but like the musical acts outside of being like bands that people are still talking about or anything like that, you would have acts like this that are just like, here is a guy who's way talented, you know?
Yeah.
And I just hadn't seen a TCGS in a while that had just that one-off rapper.
It's beautiful. Our third caller is Joe from Queens. Boo. It's Joe from Queens. He gets booed. Chris asks him to describe himself. And Shannon coughs, asshole. But Joe describes himself thusly.
6'2", tan, athletic build, blue eyes, dirty blonde hair.
So he's basically Garland.
Yeah, he does describe himself as Garland from The Last Victim.
Michael Garland, our serial killer ghost.
He describes himself. It didn't sound like the audio clip had it. He says good jawline.
Yeah, he does say good jawline.
Good jawline. What's a good jawline?
Yeah, he describes himself in the most romantic way possible. Like, this is so rose-colored glasses for your own damn self, right? Somebody else called themselves energetic at best. It's just like, chiseled.
Chris asks if, like, the @Joe from Queens on Twitter is really him. And it is. And so Chris now has his internet history, knows that this guy's actually just an asshole.
I thought about this too. For as much as we joke in the Discord about like doxing people, can you imagine being called out for your Twitter handle on the air?
Right.
Like, Joe from Queens is an asshole.
Yeah.
But like, are you Joe from Queens on Twitter? Even though that's like a direct correlation, it's still just like, oh, you're just calling out my Twitter handle on a public access show that's being streamed out everywhere.
And in what may be a related update of the current status of his Twitter handle, its tweets are protected.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
I imagine that probably happened mid-public access.
Probably, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Joe says that he's glad that Shannon got a chicken head because it goes great for her. And Shannon, just makes the fun of him. Joe's like, you have to speak up, honey, so I can hear you. I'm fucking shitty.
I don't talk up to you. I talk down to you, Joe from Queens. Look at that jawline, Joe from Queens. Look at that slender build, Joe from Queens. Look at that 6'2" asshole, Joe from Queens.
Yeah, so that's how she describes the store or the thing that is drawn
of him,
which is just an asshole. It's just an actually graphic drawing of an infected asshole.
The drawing's really good. Also, Shannon, I have to say, is so fucking good at shooting people down.
Oh my God, so good.
Not just here, but anytime. I mean, Shannon's your number one, on any other TCGS, if somebody's being a particular dick, Shannon's the person that you look to like shut them down, right? I saw Shannon perform once at UCB, and there was a drunk ass person in the audience. Oh, Shannon handled that situation quickly and swiftly, and it was just like, oh shit, she had the whole audience on her side. Shannon is so good at ripping an asshole a new one.
She's like the best person I've ever seen at just shutting down a heckler or anyone like that.
So this was perfect.
Yeah. Chris entertains Joe. I from the beginning have been like, should he have entertained Joe this much? We learn that he bans Joe eventually. But he asks him his internet story, and he just tells a transphobic joke.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it's just
it starts with I was banned from chat roulette, which is like, if you were banned from chat roulette, you are the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good marker of your past actions as a human being.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, I got banned from chat roulette. Man, I need to look at my life.
Yeah.
I've made some mistakes for sure.
Yeah.
But no, not Joe from Queens.
He's like, honestly, like I've been listening to a lot of Howard Stern lately. He sounds like someone who got rejected from Howard Stern because he wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Howard would just have been like, you're not funny. You're just doing Ronnie's bit bad.
Yeah.
Ronnie being like the sexual asshole old man.
And Howard will take on even like any of his whack pack people. If they've had a particularly bad week, Howard will have them on and just be like, hey, we haven't taken your calls because you just don't have anything for us.
Oh, all the time.
He'll do that all the time. And so Chris does, that's the aspect of Howard and Chris, where he'll call this sort of stuff up. But I see what you're saying, though. He probably let Joe from Queens go on a little too long here because at a certain point, it's just like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And he was still figuring it out. I think it's interesting seeing how he handles Joe from Queens versus future recurring people and how he interacts with them. Like, because he is definitely still figuring out where his lines are, where the lines are for the audience, where the lines are for his crew, like his for Shannon, for Bethany, for everybody.
You're 14 episodes in. We're what, 30 episodes into CGP?
Oh, yeah.
So like this is still early. We're further into CGP than this is on TCGS.
And Shannon is so funny shutting him down that it's hard to. It's like there's also that element of, do I want to lose this joke where Shannon is just killing every week?
Especially because we have the dynamic of like there's Joe from Queens and every woman on the panel.
Yeah.
And then there's Shannon with Alyssa. And it's let's look at what's going on here where like clearly Shannon and Alyssa's thing is in good humor.
Yeah, they're in on it together.
Yeah. And like Alyssa is very clearly doesn't have to interact with anything that makes her feel uncomfortable. Like she mostly just like giggles and laughs and like that's great. Like she's 16. They also did shit together. There's like a random video where they're like in Times Square.
Right? Yeah. There's that one, a catch or snatch.
Yeah, there's that too.
Is in the background like. So like, it feels warm, whereas this just feels.
I noted too that there was a dynamic of like Shannon is the heel to Alyssa, Joe is the heel to Shannon.
Yeah,
and I think that's something that they edit over time in the show too. Is that like the Joe from Queens bit gets dropped after a while, like it doesn't happen as frequently, and it's like you have to focus in on like it's perfect, like you're saying. It's a little more in, both are on the same page with Alyssa and Shannon, to where let's focus on that dynamic because we can make that work. The Joe from Queens thing, if it goes down these routes of like a transphobic joke, let's not explore that as much.
And actually just being like cruel and suggestive, like instead of being like, he could have made it more absurd. The way that I think that Shannon makes it absurd, like the things that she is suggesting and the language that she is using, like tang.
Shannon is not an actual human being that was banned from chat roulette.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Joe from Queens is an actual human being that did something to get banned from chat roulette, where people are openly masturbating.
Yeah.
Like, what did he do to get banned from it?
Yeah.
He's calling in as that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just calling in saying like, I want to have sex with you, or I wouldn't want to have sex with you, or like you're fat, you're not fat. Like that's not.
It's a stern
being
caller.
A joke. Yeah. It's a bad
stern caller.
And a nice contrast with that sort of stern caller comedy, if you can call it Joe from Queens comedy, is Connor Ratliff, great human being and presidential candidate at this point.
Yep.
Where he's calling from St. Louis, Missouri, where he just left a campaign rally that just happened to have been in a ballpark at the same time as a baseball game, which I love. I love I love when Connor plays completely oblivious to everything around him. And
there were some coincidences and chants.
It's real
cheers.
Odd. Yeah. Why did they cheered when things happened on the baseball field? But it was obviously for me saving America.
Yeah.
And he passed a buttons to a dozen people. The 35 Ratliff 2012 bit is still like one of my favorite parts of TCGS.
I don't know if it was a Teespring or a Society 6 or whatever it was, but there might still be Ratliff 35 merch available on the internet. Okay,
there is still. It's Cafe Press.
Cafe Press. There you go.
And there's both the 35 Ratliff 2012 merch and the Ratliff 2016 Go for the Gold merch.
Great.
It's all still available. You can still get a beach towel with Connor's face on it.
Okay.
And Gene asks how much money Connor has raised.
How much have you raised in donations so far?
I'm sorry, pardon me, what?
It was just a question from Random Gene. Don't even worry about it, Connor. Don't even worry about it.
Brutal.
Brutal.
Just provided here without comment. And then Connor tells his internet story.
I have a Twitter account, which is 35 Ratliff 2012.
Yes.
That's the story.
I think that his Twitter now actually has quite an internet story, because his name for that account now is Ratliff 2020, not running, no novelty candidates, please.
Yeah.
And his bio is, my name is Connor Ratliff, and I ran for president as a joke in 2012. But then America proved it cannot be trusted with novelty candidates.
Yep.
And so now that is his bad internet story.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can thank Connor for everything. The likeness of Connor is very good.
Yes. Matt does a really good Connor.
Little tiny beard.
Yeah.
It's great.
He also unveils a new video.
I love this video.
It's about apologizing.
Because he's 36 at the time of recording, but knows he's going to turn 37. And at that point, he'll have wisdom. He'll still can have the magical qualities of a 35-year-old that the founding fathers had in mind when they said that was the age to be president.
Mm-hmm.
But more wisdom. And I think that's the perfect combination. And Gethard endorses Connor Ratliff. And, I think he should have won the 2012 election. I think he would have been a great president. I won't hesitate to do a historical endorsement right now.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna retroactively endorse Connor Ratliff for 2012.
Retroactively, yeah.
I thought that was interesting here. I think Chris says that this is Connor. A couple weeks ago, he announced that he was running for president.
Yeah,
and now we're already on a I've turned 26 bit, which the whole thing was based off of him being 35.
Yeah.
So I don't know the timeline of this, but it sounds as though Connor started a bit that was very dictated on the fact of him being 35 years of age in the very last month of him being 35.
Yes. Yeah. As I remember, the scandal when he turns 36 is 2 or 3 episodes after he announces that he's running because he's 35.
All right.
It's interesting seeing him coming out about these scandals in his campaign and how he, as a fake politician, talks about them. And talks to the voters about them in 2012, and then now just exists.
Yeah. Just a scandal, and it was all heavily Connor having his PR people that were helping him put out his statements and everything. There's on Connor's YouTube page. There is a full documentary about him running for president, so that's worth checking out as well.
Yeah, that's great. It's Random Orlando is in it, and also a young Adam Conover is in the very end.
Yeah, that's right.
Adam
oh my
Conover, the partner of Lisa Hannawalt, who did the designs for BoJack Horseman and did Tuca and Birdie.
Yep.
Yeah, ruiner of everything himself, Adam Conover.
All right, so then Walter's drawn art that says #1 fan. This is, of course, TCGS's #1 fan, Walter. Joe from Ohio drew Chris reading erotic fiction. That was erotic fiction where Will and Brian were getting it on,
Yeah,
right?
it was Will and Brian getting it on.
Someone drew the human fish. Don points out the body looks like a flux capacitor because it's just a Y. Somebody drew Chris jumping out of a plane to get onto M&N Studios, which who knows whether or not this is the precursor of the taking a helicopter to smoke weed or eat an edible, I should say, later on.
I mean, I also assume that's how he arrives to M&N Tower every Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Then our next caller is Sean, who is our smoke weed son caller. His internet story is that he tried to buy weed on Craigslist and it worked.
Oh!
He asked Will Hines when they're going to smoke weed, son. Will says sometime would be fine. Sean is out and celebrates Connor for president. Also calls to legalize weed.
I love that part.
Yeah. I mean, and this was good too, is you had people like Sean Diston calling into TCGS and just doing stern bits.
Yep. But good stern
they
bits.
were themselves it's like, I mean, it's sort of too like when we have in Discord, like when anytime Carmen comes on, Carmen's literally just doing a fucking bit whenever he's on the after show or anything like that, and it's just like, this is fucking gold, right? So if you have somebody that's not just putting it on, they can work fucking gold. And this is the TCGS early years where people were just calling in to fuck around.
I think he figured out, like, anytime Connor does his like stupid laugh
Carmen?
Carmen. What did I say?
Connor. I said Connor too. We were doing the same thing.
Anytime he does like this stupid laugh at the end of jokes when he's doing his like oblivious characters.
Yeah, when he's doing his like I'm high.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
He I just like can't contain myself. Like, what?
It's so good.
Fuck? And he kept doing that to fuck me up. Fuck that guy.
Will does a bit where he points out that Sean's whole phone call was about talking about weed, and then Chris gets really mad over the fact that, like, why do we have to explain this? Yeah, that's his bit.
I loved it.
Oh, shit.
Will Hines, like, doing that. Will Hines is so good at just, like, poking Gethard.
Well, and everybody's trying to play the heel in this episode.
Yeah,
Will is, Brian is, Shannon is to Alyssa. Joe from Queens is to Shannon.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it. And then you've got Gene in the back that's just like, no, G. Wallace is good.
Fucking love Gene.
I love Gene.
Love Gene. I find it interesting. Like, this is before we had Vacation Jason to be the heel of the show.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps the show. And I also think that in CGP, once Carmen became Gethard's heel, like, I think things kind of clicked into place for the extended universe of that show. Like, the perception of a community among the performers, like, even though they aren't usually on each other's shows unless they're Sky Daddy.
Yeah. Unless they're Sky Daddy. Unless they're Sky Daddy.
Yeah, I mean, because he is everywhere.
Yeah.
He is always with us. But it's, I find that really interesting, and I haven't really examined, like, why that clicks something narratively in my brain.
Maybe it just stops other people from trying to be the heel, because here you have like a bunch of people trying to do that thing, and it's just like if you play the heel, you're hopefully putting somebody else up, you know. But if everybody's trying to be the heel, then everybody's just being sort of dickbags. But you know, they're not struggling with it this episode. But yeah, that might be that Carmen element of like, you know, maybe we needed a heel to have something to rally around that isn't just like, we want the show to succeed.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, boo Carmen because he called into Christie's episode, and you know, Chris is doing his Chris thing where he makes something happen by saying that he doesn't want it to happen by saying like, oh, this guy's big timing us and trying to make himself like the center of the it's just to have something for us all to rally behind. And of course, Carmen is like the sweetest fucking guy in our Discord.
Oh my God, yes.
And he'll come in and he'll play the heel in the Discord, and we'll all rally around it. But like, check the pins. Carmen said some very lovely things about the fact that he's very happy that this community exists.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think it's the same with Riley. How like Riley is renowned as one of the nicest people, and he truly is.
He was on that CGP episode of the podcast where it was just, here's nice comedians. How is it hard to be mean? Like, that was the topic.
Yeah.
It was Riley, Rumrill, and Gethard was just like, how is it being mean?
Yeah.
Which is very, very cute. Our next caller is anonymous, and his description is that he was stung by a jellyfish.
Perfect call for this.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I can see them in my head now.
Oh yeah. I imagine that scene from Friends where Joey has to pee on somebody.
I actually don't know.
I don't know my friends. Yeah. I don't know my friends.
Friends is quite the hole in my pop culture knowledge.
I know a couple of scenes with Phoebe, and I know that scene. I'm pretty sure it was Friends. But that person then needs to turn down their TV.
It's not TCGS unless somebody needs to turn down their TV while they're on the phone.
Chandler peed on Monica.
Thank you for fact checking that.
Thank you. Are they siblings?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
And then
no, they're not. They're the romantic, one of the romantic couples. Ross and Monica are siblings. Took me a second to know, which I think tells you all you need to know about my.
Hey guys, welcome to our Friends podcast.
Welcome to
Friends
Forever.
One of my favorite podcasters. They Swish and Flick. They talk about Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
They now have a podcast called Friends on Friends.
There you go.
Where they talk about Friends episodes.
Everybody should start a Friends podcast.
Yes.
I don't know why we're not doing it.
Right?
Well, Tom Sharpling has a Friends podcast that's apparently very good and has this like meta narrative that stretches through all of it. So check that out.
Yeah.
This person has heard about the Will Hines videos and was watching the Will Hines videos online, and that's what led him to TCGS. That's how he discovered the show, and asks if Chris and Will are going to have another revenge video. But unfortunately, they laid their feud to rest after Will, I guess, stole Dawn Finelli as a best friend.
Yeah, you don't do that.
No.
Yeah. Husky trolls him because Chris feels bad because the guy keeps like apologizing because he keeps forgetting what he's going to say because he's probably stoned out of his mind.
Yeah.
And then Chris feels bad. It's like this lovely like feeling bad cycle that it's really easy to get Chris into.
There's one of these at least every public access TCGS.
Like, I feel like I know what to do to trigger it now, which is like, I'm like, Chris, my friend, like.
I mean, I don't want to get too far off topic, but like, you got a killer bit from Chris from your sandwich night Skype call, which that was like, that was him acknowledging your abilities as a caller to just have a bit on hand. You did your own Stern call. You successfully completed a bit.
Yeah, so if anyone is curious about that, you can see my cat online.
See your cat.
Yeah.
He's incredible. Everyone should see my cat.
Last like 2 minutes of sandwich night. Go check it out.
And then the third human fish question happens, which is Manhattan cable access versus Manhattan public access. And cable access wins. They're the same thing, as far as I know. And
as far as I know, I worked in public access. As far as I know, they're the same. However, I could see there being one really nerdy distinction that none of us know. You know?
That's a good point. It could be that, like, well, if it goes over the antenna, it's public access.
Well, for all of us, we're all like, because somebody says in the episode, right? Like, what's the that's the same thing, right? I'm sure within, and as weird as it seems to say, within the public access community, the subpopulation, I'm sure they're just like, fuck cable access people.
Yeah.
I'm sure cable access people are like, fuck public access. If there is a distinction.
If there's a distinction, it's definitely a very fraught one that we have just stepped in the middle of.
Yeah, it's a Taylor ham pork roll.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
And then Matt thought caller 6 looked like an eye, which had been stung by a jellyfish, which I loved as the visualization of that. And Miel drew Matt again. Matt drawing.
And that's when we get Sandy honing.
Yes.
That's when we get the second of the 3 busy Debras.
Yes. And we also get someone drawing a giraffe, which I thought was a fun sort of foreshadow of Beautiful Anonymous's whole thing where they kept drawing Gethard as a giraffe for a while there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I actually don't know why that happened. If you do.
I don't remember why either. I was listening to Beautiful Anonymous at the time that it happened, and I don't remember offhand why it happened. And then my favorite thing is that the Facebook group had to make a rule that said, cool it with the giraffes.
Yeah. I remember all the social media things around it, and I was listening then too, but I don't remember the episode.
Yeah.
And then Chris reminisces how back in college, he got challenged to a fight online. Chris told the guy to meet him on a corner, and then from inside, watch to see who went to the corner. And it was a wiry dude with a mullet. A strange-looking, trashy dude.
This is such a Chris move to be like, yeah, you want to fight? Yeah, you want to fight? Meet me at this corner. And then just peering from a window. This is such a move, man.
I love it so much. I can see it so well. Like, I can see how it fits into, like, lose well and a bad idea I'm about to do, like, so perfectly.
But like, what was he gonna do? Like, depending on the guy that showed up, like, go down and fight him or not? Because I think the intent was he was never going to fight him. He was just going to sit up there and watch him, which at that point, I would be terrified that a person showed up to beat the shit out of me, you know?
And I gave them an intersection so close to somewhere where I would be, to my place. Yeah.
Like, I would, even if I were the kind of person that would be like, meet me at these cross streets, the act of seeing that person show up, I'd be like, oh, fuck.
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they actually showed up. I got in a fight with an insane person.
Right? Because that's a level of, like, dedication to the fight that I've never had.
Yeah. If they didn't show up, I would look like an asshole.
Yeah.
And if they did show up, I would be an asshole.
Exactly. Yeah.
Terrifying.
Chris wants stories from creeps is what leads us to our next caller. It's Bobby.
He gets one.
Bobby asks for Don's name. He's just like, who's that guy at the end? And then this gets real weird. He asked Don to lift up his shirt. I think this ended up becoming like a clip that they used to like promote the show for a while.
I'm sorry, he's just really hot. Is there any way he could just lift his shirt up on camera? Wow.
No hesitation.
None at all.
No hesitation.
None at all.
But the weirdest part is that Bobby gets real specific with his demands. He wants Don to lift up his left elbow while also rubbing his belly but not touching the skin. And these requests get weird. Chris asked Bobby to walk us through whatever he is doing while he looks at Don's shirtless body. And then Bobby just says that that's enough.
Yeah.
wraps up his call, and Chris just says thank you for a very weird call.
But the Bobby thing, it's all honed so perfectly for this call that I love it. Bobby nails it. Bobby's an amazing caller.
Yeah.
Bobby walks that Joe from Queens line because he's I think it's because like Hallie apparently was like no, like saying the whole time, probably because like me and like many women were like, oh, like that's awful and creepy, like that is a frightening experience.
Oh yeah.
But because of the power differential, it's totally different between Dawn and Bobby and any of the ladies on the show. Like even Shannon and Joe from Queens, like the power differential is like almost flat because like we don't know who this person is. Obviously Shannon is the person who we get behind, but like, you know, but with Dawn, like it's hard to imagine a situation where he would be physically threatened. Like I feel he's very buff. He's a buff fucking big ass white dude.
Yeah.
Like he should not be afraid, especially of Bobby, who had a very effeminate voice, you know?
Yeah.
Like the perceived power differential there for good or bad is obviously in Dawn's favor.
Yeah. And also it rode the line too of like it seemed to be insinuating something sexual while not being sexual at all.
Yeah, being super awkward and weird.
By being the most awkward, and Bobby was just playing into that. I was just like, oh yeah, that's perfect. When it's just Dawn with like a face like an asshole, like just making like a confused like, oh yeah, you into this? Lifting up his shirt and whatever. So it's just like the least sexual act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We then get a caller number 8, Will from Connecticut, basically doing what Gethard wanted, just being kind of mean. Just like asking like, what's up with the dog boy in the back? Like the human fish. What's up with the like rapper boy?
What is up with that sketchy hair you got going on? It's crazy.
About the human fish. To be honest, the first time I saw TCGS was live at Outside Lands.
Yeah.
I saw it because Forrest told me to go see it.
Yeah.
And I was really freaked out by the human fish.
Oh, yeah?
Primarily because of his body hair.
Yeah.
There were also a bunch of like... There were death heads behind us.
Yeah.
And so like we didn't really know what was going on. There weren't that many people in the tent. Like this weird show was happening and there's these people behind us like screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Just shouting and screaming and jumping up and down and these weird chants. And like these weird noises, and I was
thrown
like,
off.
I was like, what cult nonsense have I walked into?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew I should feel safe, but I did not feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was TCGS.
It was also the show at the Cum Jug.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I was at home because I had to work that day or something and I couldn't go. And I just saw on Twitter, we're bringing a cum jug. And I was just like, oh no. I told people to go to this and this is their first time experiencing this and there's a cum jug.
Like I didn't know that I could trust that there would not be cum in this jug.
Yeah. That's the thing is that, that's what that we've dealt with that before in the Discord too, is like you don't know if you don't know the person, if they're not a known commodity, you don't know whether or not, that's a good way of putting it. You don't know if there's cum in that jug.
Yeah.
You don't know if there's literal cum in that jug.
That's our new aphorism on the Discord.
Is there cum in that jug? Is it there? But yeah, we get we just get that person getting the jerk face song, and Shannon being pissed off with the "What's up with" format. And we find out on Twitter that the account called Geth Artist made a book for Geth. They made
they made the Husky.
Oh,
Hines.
not
they made the Husky Hines book, like part of it, and didn't continue it, unfortunately.
Yeah, their only other tweet is them saying they're working on their masterpiece, and then nothing.
This is beautiful.
It's great.
There are. It would be great for somebody to compile all of the TCGS related Twitter accounts that were created over the years. Probably only have at most 10 tweets each.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty out there. You know.
And then caller 9 is Andy Luca, who apologizes for tagging Chris in a photo of James Woods, which made Chris realize he looks a lot like James Woods, and that made him sad, and so he unfriended Andy on Facebook. And then Chris offers to refriend Andy and apologizes. And then he thinks G. Wallace looks like Birch Harms, who is a New York UCB guy. And Chris says no one knows who that is. I didn't know who that is, but I did Google it.
And he looks like him?
He looks a lot like him.
Yeah?
Yeah, you
All
can
right.
see his UCB page in the show notes. And yeah.
He looks like him.
He looks a lot like him. So
All
that
right.
was a good observation from Andy Luca.
This call is also a good indication of like that TCGS element of somebody can just call into the show and be like, hey, sorry I did that shitty thing to you on Facebook that caused you to unfriend me.
Yeah.
Like their show host is like friending his viewers and like has weird Facebook beef.
Yeah, I love that. I love the Facebook beef. And Matt's drawing of Andy has the thought bubble of Dawn, apparently, which I love. And Miel drew Matt, who has gained weight over the course of her drawings.
It's a little wider. Just
Yeah.
a little wider.
And Will loves how many songs they had. And go, is this your first episode? And Gene says, hey, it's actually the 14th episode.
That's good. That's
which
good.
I loved.
Our caller 10, did we have a name for this person? Maybe not.
I
think
don't
they were
think so.
anonymous.
They were anonymous. They say it's their first time watching. They shout out G. Wallace. And they ask him to describe himself for his drawing. He says he's a big bald guy with a goatee who referees football. Again, perfect call for this bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because even if you just said I referee football, that's a perfect call. Saying that you're a bald guy with a goatee, we're in character territory, which is going to be great. Don Finelli's dad is the caller's dentist.
I love that.
His fingers had been inside this guy's mouth.
And the dude likes this strange show, which, yeah, I would love a show if I called in and I got to say, like, hey, I think your dad's my dentist. This is the shit I wish my high school public access show was like. You know, like my small town was small enough that somebody could call in and do this sort of shit. Nobody did, but this was it fully realized. That's what TCGS was. So Matt drew the guy from the rear, from like a 3/4 view, watching the TV. He's bald and he has the little whispers, the little faint, distinct goatee from the side, which is great detail. Matt gained hair and lost weight in Mael's drawing. How do you say it? Mael's drawing. So we've got subtle differences in the drawings of Matt. Will posted a photo of the back of Geth's head on Twitter. Again, the Twitter integration here is all real good. Jerry Legend tweeting that Joe from Queens is a scared little bitch that won't ever be able to grasp the balls to face Shannon in person.
And the truth hurts Joe.
Did Shannon say that?
No, that was part of the tweet.
That was part of the tweet?
Yeah.
Oh. P.S. If you're too scared to get your ass beat by Shannon, come to Cincinnati and I'll be happy to do it for her.
But he spelled it Cincinnati.
Oh, that's right. Cincinnati.
That was his typo, not ours.
Yeah, sorry. Missed it.
I mean, that's fair. I had a lot of other typos in this, so I understand.
I typo all the time. You see how many times my messages in Discord say edited? Then we go to our second break with G. Wallace. It says here, I love he weaves the panel and audience member names into the song.
Because he's like, hey, human fish, what's on your mind?
Gotcha.
And like brings it all into the lyrics, which is very fun.
And then he takes a bite of the onion at the end of his song.
Yeah.
Chris mentions at the very end, he says nobody's ever used the audience as well as G. Wallace did, which is very true.
It was lovely, really lovely. Parting thoughts on the show. Brian said that the show was pretty rickety, like a collective needy sadness where everyone in the room needs to make themselves feel better. And that from a network perspective, it's never going to work.
Yeah, and that would prove to be true.
Yes, like twice over. Like we really tried. Like really, really tried.
I love that Chris is like, yeah, but what about the artistic merits? And Brian's just like, that's a load of shit. Come to where I live, another city.
Yeah. Los Angeles.
I said Los Angeles, but I love come where I live, another city. It's like, okay, so anywhere else?
Husky says that his people sound like they've tried to choke women before if they're a man, and others that don't want to leave their room, which Gene, of course, knows otherwise.
You know what? The Chris Gethard show made me leave my room when I was depressed for 3 weeks.
That was just
so sweet.
That was a puppy dog voice from Gene.
So sweet. And
sweet.
It reminded me of when we saw Birbiglia and Gethard when Gethard opened for him in Santa Cruz, and we were all waiting out in front of the theater, and Birbiglia looked outside and then turns around and walks in, and then Gethard comes out.
Yeah.
And Gethard says that Birbiglia knew that we were waiting for Gethard because your fans always look like they need a hug.
Yeah.
And I just loved that.
Yep.
Like, he didn't even say hi. He's like, no, Chris, these are your guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's the end. We see again that the credits are incorrect, making it a more valuable episode overall. Like Beanie Babies. And that's the end of our episode, which means it's time for my portion, MVNPC.
I love you!
My favorite audience member. But instead of doing that, I have some research for you.
Yes.
I decided that my esoteric research should go in my section rather than just at the top of the episode.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
Can I do a quick? Can I say my favorite audience member?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you're going to get to this. I don't want to spoil it if you're going to get to it. Front and center in the audience is a young Patrick Kottner.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I didn't notice that.
We did not
he's
notice
a little
it at all.
baby Patrick Kottner.
I remember they said that they had to like yell at him constantly to stop talking to the celebrities.
Yeah.
When he was working for them, which I think is adorable.
I mean, he's a big time it's why he's good at his job. He's a big time schmoozer, and he gets shit done. So yeah, that dude from a young age seemed to always have his shit together. But yeah, he's in the front row center in this.
I mean,
episode.
him and P. Diddy are the two bookers of TCGS.
Yep.
I mean, so
yeah, absolutely.
It's beautiful, beautiful shit. So the research that I did was on Chris's question, like, why are people shitty to each other online? And something that someone named, I think Sarah Bernstein from Wall Street Journal says, we're less inhibited online because we don't have to see the reaction of the person we're addressing, says Sherry Turkle, psychologist and Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor. That's MIT for the uninitiated. Bitch is from MIT. Yeah, we don't see the person who we're addressing. It's harder to see and focus on what we have in common, so it's easier to dehumanize each other. And she says, astoundingly, many people still forget that they are speaking out loud when they communicate online, especially when posting from a smartphone. You're publishing, but you don't feel like you are. It feels like a toy. It doesn't feel consequential. I know this because my high school boyfriend / like now one of my best friends, we started dating our junior year. And I was like, wow, I don't really know this person very well. I wonder how this happened that we started dating. And then I realized that I had been talking to him every single night on AIM since freshman year. I didn't make the connection in my head between the person who I spoke to every single night for hours. We're still very good friends. And then the human person that I never talked to during school.
Yeah. But did you know that those were one and the same?
I did, intellectually.
But it didn't click.
It didn't click until one of my friends got a crush on him. And then I was like, oh. I was like, why would you have a crush on that guy? And then I was like, I know him though. Of course.
I think that's also like high school AIM days, and I don't mean to date myself, but I don't know what the kids these days use, but that AIM aspect is that you had a completely different relationship with your friends on AIM than you did at school.
Absolutely.
It flavored your relationship in both areas, but you would talk about shit on AIM that you would never talk about in person. Yeah. I feel like that was always, it goes to your point of the research is there's not a facade, but there's it's a whole different world. It doesn't feel the same as interacting together one-on-one. Yeah. So, I totally get that. I feel like that was the common denominator in high school AIM chats.
Yeah. And the reason why things also get mean in communities or in YouTube comments, etc., besides dehumanizing others, not really seeing the other as a person, is that there's a diffusion of responsibility. There's a lot of anonymous people, so everyone feels less accountable for their own actions, which is the problem with corporations. They become more likely to engage in that amoral behavior. And also when they don't think they're going to be held immediately accountable for their words, people will fall back on mental shortcuts and process information less thoroughly, and lead to more simplistic evaluations of complicated issues, which is the problem I was having with that woman, is that she felt like someone was coming at her, and so she was doing more mental shortcuts and not seeing me as a person. I was not conceptualizing how she could possibly be thinking or feeling, because I was like, well, everyone must approach problems the way that I do.
Yeah.
Let us all Google Scholar this. No, like, people don't fucking do that.
And everybody on the internet is usually in defensive mode, right?
Yes.
So, like, there's I feel this way about texting too. Like, oh God, anytime that you get in one of those like text fights with a friend or something like that, where your friend's sending you like paragraphs, it's like, I want to pump the brakes, because it sounds like, maybe similarly to you, I'm a more verbal person when it comes to that sort of conversation. I want to either get you on the phone, or I would prefer to have you like face to face and let's talk it out, because we'll only ever more so talk over each other. You're not going to read my paragraph. I'm not going to read your paragraph. We're just going to spout shit at each other. And that's where there's a disconnect of like, it doesn't matter what you have to say because I'm typing my shit right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where people are on the defensive. Like my friend that goes on the message boards. Nobody on the fucking message board, or like in a Facebook group on Facebook comments when things get out of control there. It's like, nobody's fucking paying attention to what the last person just said. It doesn't matter. They just want to get their point across.
Yeah.
I also know about that tendency because I like Star Wars on the internet.
Yeah. Exactly.
The interesting catch-22 here is that if you remove the idea of comments, like if you remove comments from a video or anything, articles, it affects the reading experience and can take away the motivation to engage with the topic more deeply.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're just being presented something rather than being given the opportunity to share it with a wider group of readers and create a shared reality, which is like the experience of something is affected by whether or not we share it socially, which is CGP, which was TCGS. I think that that's the way in which Geth is hacking all of our psychologies. Like, he's hacking our brains. No, he's hacking our brains.
Okay.
He wishes to God that he could hack his own brain, but instead he is hacking ours. It's a very tragic superhero
You've got
switcheroo.
A Skynet outlook of CGP.
Yes, it's exactly what's happening. It's that like ironic, like he has the power to heal others, but not himself. And I think he's doing this. He creates a media around which a bunch of people create a shared reality. It's central to his projects, is that people are sharing the reality of experiencing it. He doesn't make shit like his albums, I guess, are like this, are the shit that he makes that isn't created for immediate. He's craving immediate feedback. His shit craves that and interaction with it. And I think that that's so interesting. And I think that's why he entertains people like Joe from Queens.
Yeah.
Especially in those early times, because that was his first, as far as we know, like experiment with creating a shared reality via the internet and via calling in and via all those things. And so you kind of have to feel your way. You don't want to be shutting down people too hard, because then maybe other people won't want to call in and try bits.
And the phone calls make it the phone calls make it a little less YouTube comments and more not face to face, but you know, it removes that element. If you're a person consuming another show, you're probably relegated to your abilities to interact with the show, or maybe participating in a Twitter poll, maybe, you know, sending in a question on an Instagram live, things like that. But with a lot of TCGS or any of that, not that TCGS had the monopoly on call-ins, that goes back forever.
Yeah.
But it was utilizing call-ins at a time that nobody else was doing call-ins. You know, nobody was doing call-ins because for the most part, you can't control what somebody is going to say. Nobody's going to know. That's why TCGS was the like, this won't fly on TV, because like nobody wants to have a call-in show. Call-in shows, A, are out of style, and B, like Stern pulls it off.
Yep.
But, you know,
he was chased out of so many places. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is he was the number one listened to person, but because and it wasn't just him saying crazy things, it was he would let people say crazy things. He would have crazy people call in, and we crave that.
And he prods them to make them say crazier shit.
Yeah. There's a huge portion of the population that craves that kind of authentic viewing, listening experience.
But it's a little more immediate, like to get back to your original point, which is it's more immediate to have the phone calls. Like Chris's website says that he's a writer, comedian, and telephone call enthusiast. That's what his website says. So like Beautiful Anonymous is that like, I'm going to have a phone conversation with you for an hour. Beautiful Anonymous was a thing because TCGS wasn't doing phone calls after a while. TCGS ended. Chris still liked phone calls. He wanted to capture sort of that TCGS energy, but in a different format. That's why Beautiful Anonymous was. So the phone calls, I feel make it like a more immediate process. Your guys' after party that we do in Discord, I think, is a further extension of that, because what other show, when you talk about immediate feedback, what other show has, let's all hop on essentially a conference call after the show and talk about it? And I don't mean worst case scenario, but like at its bare minimum, it's going to be fans of the show continuing the conversation that came up from the show.
Which is really what we wanted to do it for, because we were all on the Discord talking about the show, typing afterwards. It's hard for me to type. I have like bad hands. And it was just so much fun hanging out with everyone, being on the Discord during the show. We were creating our own separate shared reality of the experience of watching the show.
And when you're talking about immediate feedback, it's like at its bare minimum, it's all of us continuing the conversation that came upon the show, or going down a little road of chaos, maybe. But then at other times, it'll be like, you guys have had Carmen step in and talk about, like, legitimately a conversation that you would not hear Carmen necessarily having somewhere else. No. You've had Sky Daddy on, who's just kind of like pontificated here or there. He came on after his episode, and like Chris has come on. You had that 2-hour conversation with them. When you talk about like immediate download or like reflection on a show, they're all on a high and it's midnight on the East Coast. And what other show is having a conference call afterwards with its fan community to be like, how'd you guys like it? You know, I'll tell you a little behind the scenes thing, which is Kate Sweeney, who directs some of the episodes of CGP, and Chris, a lot of times they would text me after the show and they would be like, did people like it? This was in the first couple of weeks. And so I would always have to report back like, yeah, people liked it. When we started doing your guys' after show, and when like the Discord was more of a thing and people were more active in there and everything, they would just go on there and see how it was happening. You know, sometimes they've stopped by your guys' after show. Sometimes they'll just, Kate goes back, I know, and she'll read the history of the comments the night before just to see what people may have responded to. So it's like, it's helpful for them even in producing the show of knowing what resonated with people.
I think it's such an interesting model for like micro media.
Yeah.
And a model for community. Something that they've found in research and in just like looking at stuff. The most important control of our behavior are the established norms within any given community. And for the most part, we will act consistently within that space. And I think that's the two of the things that this fan community, this like Discord does is we have the established norms of being very nice and friendly, which helps a lot, because even when people like, we do fucking bits, like we go deep into shit, but like the basis is always friendly and nice. Like, and so that is, you know, there are heels, there's funny things that happen, but like, I think that keeps it a friendly, nice community. And it also, it's when you have Chris there, when you have the people who made the show there, it's like, I think at one point, someone came on to the Discord, and I think Miel on the Discord said, or Thrill House may have said, that it's as if we had someone really cool come over to our house and we're just like trying to clean our messy room.
Oh yeah. I think that was Connor, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it might have been Connor came on.
I think like everybody was talking probably about
Dicks.
Yeah, Dicks or Weezer or some bullshit. And then Connor came on and was just like, hey guys. And then everybody was just like, oh, what are your thoughts on what goes into your thought process behind producing a show about a talking rooster? It's just like, oh yeah, we're normally little shitheads on the internet. But now that you're here, well, then I don't mean that. But yeah. It is. I've been enjoying getting the hosts and everybody on there because of that immediate feedback aspect of it. Everybody from the if you're a fan of the show, it's great to be able to talk to the person that was just on TV that you just enjoyed, and you're going to talk to them in a way that was not the show. Carmen is going to do bits in the Discord, but you guys have talked to him in the after show, and he's gotten wildly real.
Absolutely.
Sky Daddy, as much as his hype man persona, and he will hype that up in the Discord, he'll also have just like a really frank conversation with you. You had a really frank conversation with Chris, which he's more known for it, but like it's just as much like for a fan that you're able to communicate with them in that immediate sense right after the show. And also for them, they're, like I said, they're on a high. They want to know how the show went. If they can go in and if they can see a group of 20 people that still want to talk about what they just did, especially for a performer, they want to eat that shit up. We talked about it, I think, on the Discord of like the after show that you guys do is sort of like everybody hanging out in the alleyway behind a show venue waiting for the act to come out and just like talk real quick, and that's what it's sort of like. And we've pitched CGP as sort of being an online comedy venue. So if everything I would like to parse everything to be an actual physical location at the comedy venue, and your guys' after show is the alleyway behind the theater.
Oh, I fucking love alleyways.
If that's okay.
Love alleyways.
Oh, it's very fun. We're happy to
That's where I would be.
Yeah.
Chaos happens.
But like that would, I mean, to go back to community, it's like, if we were a venue, we would be a community around it. So, you would want to, we would end up having like info nights at like whatever bullshit coffee shop we have at the front of the theater. Those would be our regular days. And after a show happens, we're out in the alleyway. Like that's where the community congregates.
Yeah.
And I'll say that, as being the person that has been tasked with like kind of putting some of this stuff in order, it's the easiest fucking thing in the world to do that for an established TCGS community. When we plugged it over to CGP, mind you, not everybody from TCGS has joined us, but like to the aspect of like everybody's fun and nice and cool. That's a over the years TCGS thing, right? If we were building this from scratch, we would have plenty of assholes.
Oh yeah.
But TCGS had a weird way of having a magnet to just generally cool people, and the people that like it are typically of the same sort of wavelength.
Yeah.
Not everybody's not exactly the same, but everybody, there's the aspect of empathy and
radical
kindness.
Openness, at least an attraction to seeing that in others.
Openness, what you saying the word radical makes me think of the Mr. Rogers phrase is radical kindness.
Oh yeah.
So like that sort of shit. Yeah.
It's the place where like Omar, I think it was, admitted to just like committing a low-key hate crime.
Yeah.
Like on the show with Chris, and like the reaction was just like, come on, Omar. And he gets back in line like with the community, because the way that he said it indicated that he was not going to do it again.
Yeah.
And it's a loving community where you can make
truthful
mistakes.
Community.
You can say the things that you have done that you are ashamed of, that you wouldn't have done if you like were thinking, and you're not going to get kicked out of the fucking community because of it. And I think that that's something, it's a norm that Chris sets.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying that it's the easiest fucking thing to, at least when we set up all this stuff that exists now, it's like you said, Chris sets the tone. And so everything that follows makes it so much easier. So that is sort of, I talk about like the secret sauce with the show, and like that's the secret sauce. We have a Discord full of people that we've talked about it being like a nice corner of the internet. It's a, whatever the thing says in rules or whatever, it's a place for internet fun times. It is a solid place of the internet that I'd like to think that it seems that people don't necessarily grown going. Like I open up Instagram, I know that it's just like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah.
Like sort of like I grown at as much as I like seeing some of my people's shit. There's still an aspect.
Scroll.
It's a scroll. It's passive. It's not. Facebook is Facebook. We all know that. But like Discord has been. I look forward to going to it. And I like to think that people like going to there, and it's because Chris sets the precedent. That is a weird corner of the internet that doesn't exist anywhere else. It didn't take a huge amount of effort other than just keeping the train on the tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that early internet sort of thing where it was just like you were gathering with like-minded people in a space where it was very, I think it was, I don't know, I guess it wasn't, because it was just, the focus was on facilitating, hanging out and having fun and having conversation. It led to a different outcome than some of the current social media stuff where it's much more, the drive is clicks and views and monetizing.
Advertising. Influencing.
Yeah. I hate that shit. And then the community shit has been so fucking easy. Like, I mean, I did, for TCGS when it was on True TV, I was doing the after TCGS stuff where I would just cold email these people and I'd say, hey, would you mind coming on and I'll interview you? And the idea was that I would collect questions from fans and I would ask them the questions. And this was purely not sanctioned. This was not approved by anybody. I was using their graphics. Super probably not cool. Banana Man just told me like there's no real problem with that. And so I did that thing, and the one thing I enjoyed doing it, but the one piece of feedback I would have for myself in doing that is that the one thing I hated about it was that like I was the not gatekeeper, but I was this in between of the fans asking questions of them. Yeah. And like I told you guys, they had Icon Has chat, and the part that I left out about that chat room is that they had a laptop in the writer's room that they would just turn on. They would turn on the webcam for.
Whoa.
And so they would just walk by in the writer's room, and if they had bits that they were doing for Fusion, they would throw out an idea and chat would help them with ideas sometimes. So that was something that they did in the past too.
What a glorious way to make art.
Yeah. And also they had a telephone in the writer's room that they made a video and they tweeted out the phone number.
Wow.
And so there was a phone in the writer's room that could ring at any time because all of the fans knew what the phone number was. So somebody in the writer's room could pick it up. They knew that it was the that's the number that all the fans have.
Yeah.
So they could pick it up and they would just talk to whoever. So sometimes Chris would pick up, sometimes Noah would pick up, or Drew or whoever. So I forget what I was getting to, but the after TCGS thing, the feedback I had for myself was just like I didn't like being that in between, and that's why I like Discord a lot. Is that we can set up a voice chat. I did the after show thing just because like it was my sort of like hobby. Like I'll do a TV sort of like production sort of shit, but it wasn't true to the Gethard community at large, because really this should be everybody hangs out in the alleyway afterwards and meets up with everybody. But you can hang out in the alleyway even if you're in Australia, like B-Sam.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot in being like the mediator of the after show. That I don't like, or that I want to figure out a better way for it not to just be me talking. Yeah. To people.
I think you do a fantastic job. I think everybody loves that you're the fucking Terry Gross of Planet Scum. Yeah, when I was doing after TCGS, you at least have the ability to say like, hey, does somebody else have a question?
Yeah, and I want to figure out better ways to make people feel safe speaking up, because again, we're dealing with, on the one hand, this the internet, this Discord, these infrastructures that the internet has created, including the show itself, including the putting on of a show itself, has created a really wonderful way to have community and to be in community with other people. It also limits us in the way of, for some people, it's harder for them to speak up in those situations. For me personally, like, I have always been the most honest and open when I was either typing something to an unseen person, having that kind of conversation, or on the phone, like not looking at the other people. Like I did my improv final, I actually just froze on stage. My teacher got up and talked about how painful it was to watch me like not do well, because I was in front of people and I was like, what are the people seeing? And then like that night I'm like talking to Geth, you know? and people are like, whoa, like, how do you not like freeze up? I'm like, I can't see any of these bitches.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
here by myself as far as my brain is concerned.
Right.
And that's where like phone calls have become more passe, but they do have a secret that like a secret magic to them of, like you said, you don't see the other person, but you're still talking, you know? And that can be a lot more immediate than, or like more, that can go a bit deeper than just a text conversation potentially, but other people can have full-blown long text, you know, deep text conversations. I would say that in my like looking at shit to try to set up stuff, I've looked at other Discords. Like I have a billion on my little sidebar because I've joined a bunch just to see how other people run their stuff. And I go into other communities and like people send messages and don't interact with one another. And that's something that I've noticed.
How so?
Like people will just throw out like something like, you know, I ate toast today or, you know, whatever, you know, some of it's just shallow and just doesn't require a response.
Yeah.
But I would say that a thing that I've noticed comparatively with Planet Scum is that people will sustain a conversation longer in Planet Scum than I've seen in other places.
Interesting.
You know? Especially when you get into, and it's part of the smaller community compared to larger community, because some of the other ones that I'm in are admittedly for much more successful projects. And when you have that many people in there, it's just a bunch of like internet tools just all, you know, barking.
Yeah.
But I think with the more intimate community and even with adding more people, I think it's always stayed a little bit within the same realm of like people sustain conversations. People actually like look out for one another. Like just not that anybody has an expectation. Like nobody should feel pressure to have to, you know, adopt any other member of Planet Scum emotionally, you know, but people look out for, like I'll lurk in chat. I'll go to like say something. I'll notice that everybody's talking about the fact that somebody was just started a new job and it's been something that's been discussed over the course of 5 days, you know?
Yeah.
And that'll be wild to me. And that's something that I don't see in other communities necessarily.
I was thinking about that, and I've been thinking about how the experience of CGP is mimicking like a religious practice in that we go to a place every week, we gather together, we listen to someone talk, then we engage in exegesis about that talk. And the thing that I think makes it different than
church.
that leans it more towards church, because I've been thinking to myself, like, what are other fan communities like? You know, the other fan community I'm in is Star Wars, and that is not a fan community.
Yeah.
That is everybody. That's just everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone likes Star Wars. I remember getting made fun of for liking Star Wars, and now it's basic as shit. Fuck all of you bitches.
I feel like you're trying to make other points now.
I got lost. I'm sorry, friends. I'm sorry. But the thing that I think is distinct about this community and that makes it more like church is that not only are we all gathering together to see a thing, creating a shared experience of that thing, and talking about that thing, we are providing support to each other. Like in the Discord, even in as little as like, I know that I can go in there and like people know my name. Yeah. I know people's names. I can go in there and just be like, hey, how are you doing? Even like new people, if they're in there, I feel like I'm walking into a spot where I can just be friendly and social. I'm walking into my, you know, Hufflepuff common room.
You also know that if you haven't been in 2 days, if there is somebody new, if they've been in within the last 2 days, you have confidence that they have, like, we have an established style or like an established expected behavior that you know that you don't have to worry about coming in and there potentially being an internet dick. Because that would have been shut down already.
Definitely.
Or it would have been corrected.
Yeah. And you also know that there's like a community there. So you're not gonna get trapped in a situation where you're having an argument with someone. Like everyone is there to do bits, to have fun, and there is emotional support provided. Like I feel like I can go in there and be like, hey, I'm in a lot of chronic pain today. Yeah. Where are my chronic pain friends at? And you know, I get, because everyone's in fucking chronic pain. Oh, I'm here. And then I just don't feel so alone. It's this middle ground between like best friends and therapists. And like, I know that there's a place where I can be emotionally vulnerable and it's safe and it's people that I like. I believe that they like me.
And I'll say one of the things when we were setting it up, because we went around like how to organize channels before the Discord existed for a while before anybody was made aware of it, because it was just Sarah Davis and I like fucking around in it and being like, how do we set this up for the Gethard community? And one of the reason that we have a public chat and a private chat is because we thought, what did we like about the I Can Has chat that existed, and what do we like about Gethheads, the Facebook group, and what is missing in either of those two? And the thought was, I Can Has chat was great because it was 24/7. It was public. You could go there at any time. You could join it with no
background check.
Yeah, with no background check. But it was like you could join it easily. There was a limited barrier to entry there. Facebook, downside is that it's Facebook. Plus side is that the Facebook group of Gethheads was a closed community. Yeah. So people could open up in there. So the reason that there's a public chat and a private chat is that public chat is literally I Can Has chat. Private chat is really the Facebook group. Yeah. That was our thought process in creating it, because then we thought, you have public chat, you can go buck wild in there. If you want to get a little real, which we recognize that the Gethard community wants to do, you have private chat to where you know that that's not going to be posted anywhere. Yeah. You know that that's not going to be accessible to where if your mom or your ex or if you're whatever, if they decided to join, they're not going to be able to immediately see that, you know, or it's not going to be posted anywhere that would be publicly visible to your mom or your ex. And so that was the thought process behind it. So you do have that barrier. I would say the mod thing that I will disclaimer here as like a disclaimer robot is that no amount of Discord should be used in the place of actual therapy, or there is a message from Chris that you can find in the welcome page, I believe, that says as much.
It's a very good message.
It's a very good message, and it has a lot of resources if you have any needs like that. Yeah. But you know, like you were saying, it's more so like, you know, that if you're having like a bad day, not necessarily like a bad,
I need help, like professional help. Yeah. It's a place you can go and be like, hey, I'm looking for therapists and it's a really annoying situation. And you know, people in there are going to be like, oh my God, I went through that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more
this is what I looked for. Like, it's
and you know that you can go there and it's like that conversation can be having it in private, and at the same time somebody can be talking about dicks in public.
Yeah.
And you can jump in between those.
Yeah. And we should say that dicks isn't like a running thing in Discord. To my knowledge, it's more so chaos.
Yeah.
It's more so lasagna.
Oh yeah, Weezer.
It's more so Weezer, and it's all of the bots Yoda, that I installed, and
the bots.
And I regret. I don't regret them, but I regret how they've made people feel.
The butt mask emoji.
The butt mask emoji, which I will delete.
I fucking love the butt mask emoji.
The only reason I haven't,
I will riot.
The only reason I haven't is that like my trusted what am I looking for here? My trusted advisors within the Discord have all said that they don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with it. But everybody that I ask that I would like you love it.
Love it. I use
you
it
are a
constantly.
person.
It's the first emoji on my like emoji tron.
You are a person that I would trust if I were to say, hey, do you not like the butt mask emoji? Right. If you said that you didn't, you are the kind of person I would be like, yeah, I will delete it.
Like,
if Emily doesn't like it, if Emily doesn't like it, I will delete it. Yeah. Like Jess and like, I don't mean to put them on blast, but Jess and Mary, like the conversation came up and I was like, should I delete the butt mask emoji? And both Jess and Mary were like, no, we love it. And I was just like, okay, if either of the two of them had told me that they didn't like it, I would have been like, okay, we delete this.
Yeah.
I have stopped lines of joking because Mary or Jess have been not told me to stop, but been like, ooh, this makes me feel icky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to make people feel icky. Like, I think certain.
You're always
jokes
an element. You're what I called you, the commissioner of chaos.
Yes.
And you're the commissioner of chaos, and you have every right to go down that path. This guy over here is also a mod, so he might even tell you to redirect at some point.
As he does in real life.
If you see somebody there's now a command for exclamation point cookies that just makes Discord clone say, "Who likes cookies?"
Oh, good.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if a conversation is making anybody feel uneasy, or if not even uneasy, it's just if you want a conversation to be redirected, do the cookies command. You'll get a redirect. Or do topic. It'll do a new topic.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And I think that is one of the markers of why the community is so great, though, is because generally it's just respect. Like, it generally doesn't get to the point where the mods where we're coming in. It's generally just okay.
When we had to create the rules, one of the ones that we had to include was if somebody tells you to redirect, just honor it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, in the few times that we have had to take more direct measures to like address something, it has always been, and the people that I've had this conversation with can vouch for the fact that it's always been, hey, what you did isn't necessarily wrong. The fact that a mod told you to move on and you didn't listen, that's the part that's the issue. And that is like 98% of the larger issues that we've had come up is somebody's either DM me or I've had to reach out to somebody to be like, hey, not saying that you did anything wrong, just if somebody tells you to change the conversation topic or something like that, I need to ask you to just do it.
And that's one of the hard things about being online is you can't see people's faces. You can't see in the way in which anyone or a stand-up, they can see in the audience, oh, these people are uncomfortable with this joke. My goal here is to be friendly and entertain, not to shove a joke down their throat. I will therefore redirect. When you're just on a screen, looking into nothing, you don't get any of those cues.
Well, and another thing we had to establish once we created the rules channel was there is a difference between Martin or Bono doing wildly there's a difference between Martin or Bono covering topics or doing a bit that dabbles its feet into wildly inappropriate taboo areas. There's a difference between that and a unknown person within Discord doing the same. Even if it's the week of Martin's episode and you're just doing a joke along the lines that he did, not allowed, because Martin is a known commodity. Martin, everybody knows when they watch Comedy Amateur Class what they're signing up for. They do not know what they're signing up for being on Discord and you coming in and making an Epstein joke. So that was one of the things that we had to establish is that will not be tolerated. Even if it's joked about on the show, that does not make it fair game to joke about on Discord, because we're not going to stand for somebody making a weird underage joke like that, so that was something early on, because it was a question that was brought up around the week of one of the Martin episodes of is it fair game? And we had to be like, no, no, it is not. So
what are your thoughts, as a person creating this infrastructure in creating spaces for jokes to exist and not exist, and the spaces around genuine things? The way on Reddit, when someone asks a question and puts serious, and then you have to be serious, which within a community is often if we're all dicking around and I post I'm feeling really shitty about my fibro today. I'm just crying. Can someone give me some happy things to watch? The community will just give me happy things to watch. They won't, start making jokes on
somebody
that. Even
might
though
throw in
I
a
would
bit
enjoy
video.
those.
Somebody might throw in a bit video that won't make you feel happy, but
it's all people sort of switch gears to authentic bits, the way that humans do when they are within their friendship groups. But how does that work from the mod's perspective? Because we are a bit heavy group. Part of the place is going to do weird ass bits that no one else is going to entertain.
I would say that it's probably unfair to ask me that question only because, again, like Chris sets the tone. So like any amount of our community's behavior is not from necessarily me or the mods establishing anything. It's already been established. Again, we're just sort of keeping the train on the tracks. And so a lot of that is just established from the get-go. I would say that in my approach of setting up like the infrastructure, because that's more so what I see my role as being outside of, again, us keeping it on the tracks, but like in establishing the infrastructure of like what we have in place or how people are warned or banned, or if they're, you know, if there's limits or the rules or the rooms or anything like that. I would say that my approach is like it's all led by the show's approach and like the history of TCGS, which is like, it's all open source, you know? That's, again, why we have public and private, is like public is your 100% open source chat room. Private is just the same thing, only it's limited to our immediate community and nobody else can see it. And in the realm of like, if Reddit has a thing of like serious only or anything like that, my approach with Planet Scum is like, I will never be able to dictate how any of these people respond to a thing specifically, but we can set up parameters that are within the existing community sort of vibe of what is and isn't appropriate.
Yeah.
So, you know, as much as I would love, no, I wouldn't love, but like you could dictate things like that of like, oh, if somebody tags a message this way, you know, it's 100% authentic. You could, and it works on Reddit, I'm assuming, you know, within certain elements. You give me a shrug, like, who knows? But like, that's the thing with the internet is you can't guarantee that somebody's going to behave a way that you intended. So all you can really do is set up the thing of like what is and isn't acceptable behavior. Everybody has free reign to it. And that's been the fun thing with the Discord too, is like when Sarah and I were setting up and organizing the Discord, we would never imagine that it would be what it was going to be, you know? It's just became its own thing. You came in as the commissioner of chaos. You know, we now have pre-show, we have after show, we have scumbag theater, we have all these things that are like, none of us planned on any of that shit, but it's like, okay, whatever the community vibes to, and then all we really do is just keep sort of decency in check. We point it out whenever we can, whenever we see it. We beg people to tag the mods if they need anything. I think in the whole history of Planet Scum, I think the mod tag has been used twice. People have DM'd about stuff, but like nobody's really openly tagging things. I think there's an element too there of like you don't want to feel like the tattle. But yeah, in setting it all up and everything, it's just following the sort of navigation of TCGS itself, which has always been open source and come as you are. But you know, I passed around a thing to the mods one time because we did have to ban a user, and I sent Jess at least a web comic that was just like, the First Amendment by all means gives you the right to free speech. It doesn't give you the right to be an asshole. And it doesn't mean that an online community doesn't have the right to show you the door and tell you that you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, when we had to ban somebody, it was just like, we all are coming from an empathetic community. We fucking hated doing that, but we had to do it. And it was just like, yeah. And we don't wish any ill will to that person, but like, you're not welcome here. You've proven that you're not welcome here. So it's more so standing up for those standards, and any of the channels or anything like that are just to sort of meet the needs of the community.
Yeah.
Have you, what other roles have you had in creating communities of this sort or similar? What led you to being interested in this side of things?
I mean, really no community building on my own end outside of like putting dumb shit on the internet. But that wasn't massive community building or anything like that. It was all, I mean, I was a fan of the Gethard Show, and like out of all the things to love about the Gethard Show, it's like comedy number one. Community is a huge factor up there too. And so what I've told, like I told the mods the other day too, I think, or maybe this was in public chat, like I was a lurker in Gethheads for a long time. So when it comes to my approach to Planet Scum, I always think about things as like, okay, I was a lurker in Gethheads because I was intimidated for like a solid 4 years. why the fuck was I intimidated for 4 years? There was stuff, but that's our approach to Planet Scum is like, if there are lurkers, they are welcome to lurk. They have their own reasons for lurking. They might be their own thing. I would hope that they're not intimidated by the community itself. Maybe they are. There's a lot of inside jokes, admittedly, but I always approach it like that of like, I want somebody to have the biggest potential to come from a lurker to actively participating. Because if I had actively participated with TCGS sooner, I would have fucking loved it, you know? So it wasn't until like True TV era that I was doing after shows and things like that. If I had been doing shit like that for Fusion or even public access when I first started getting into it, God, I'd, you know, there's no thinking what could have happened in all that time. Like doing the after show led me to get in contact with some of these people and then go and see the show in New York live. I had never been to New York before. So if I had just not been a lurker sooner, I might have gone to New York sooner, you know? And then I might have been a couple trips into New York by now, you know, that sort of stuff. So that's another thing that I've at least gotten out of the community is that like opportunity to like, you know, meet guys like yourselves, meet people in New York, became friends with Jess, who won the limo and is one of our mods. So like just coming upon people and finding those like-minded people, that was something that I hadn't had any personal experience with before, of like being into something to where it's not just online community, but like meeting up with people. I know there's plenty of stories of like people that are into like building fucking miniatures or like Civil War recreating who find their, you know, everybody's trying to find their tribe. Everybody in the fucking world is trying to find their tribe, even if their tribe is like 2 people big or 1 person. But you know what, to each their own, right? And so this was the first like of finding tribe sort of thing. So again, approach is more so like looking out for people like 2004 me to be like, I want this to be as approachable as possible to you. So in addition to anything else I do for CGP, the community stuff, which is sort of in addition to what I'm actually doing for CGP, that is looking out for that kind of person.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I had a similar backstory with the Get Heads group where I was in it. I started watching in like with in 2013 with the Who Watches You. But CGP is really where I really fully started participating within the Gethard community fully. Like I was on the Facebook page and stuff for the show, chatting with people and a little bit on Twitter, but it was really, this was where I grabbed in because I was intimidated. And with this, it was like, well, it's new. I can do it. I can just hop in. And so I try to do the same thing. I try to welcome people because I think that even just that extra thing of like, hey, welcome might have been enough to get me over, which is like admittedly far harder in the infrastructure of a Facebook group or a chat room. Yeah. But
well, and first of all, the Discord clone now welcomes everybody.
Yes. What does it say?
You'll have to find out when people join.
What does it say? Does it say welcome to the Chaos Dome?
Let's just say that it doesn't say the same thing every time.
Yeah.
Does it sometimes say welcome to the Chaos Dome?
No, but you know what? Remind me of that later and we can make it say welcome to the Chaos Dome. Because that is good. But as far as like lurking in the Geth Heads community, like Facebook, the problem with that, especially over time, one of the things we found out within the first couple weeks of CGP, nobody has fucking Facebook. Even, I mean, we already knew that. Yeah. You know, we already know that Facebook is problematic, but you think that when you're trying to start something like CGP, you got to post to Twitter, you got to post to Facebook, you got to post to Instagram. As far as capturing the TCGS fan base, that has been difficult over time. Part of the reason is anybody that was active for public access era TCGS, they all joined Geth Heads. That was the hub. Then they all left Facebook. So although Geth Heads has large numbers, there's not a lot of active people in there. There's still plenty of active people, but like not to the extent that it was. And those accounts that exist there are either just logged out and that person doesn't plan on logging back in again, or there's probably fewer numbers because people just deactivated. So whenever I post something to the CGP Facebook page, or if I repost it into Geth Heads, it's like not getting any traction compared to Instagram as the main thing, and then Twitter secondly, mainly because of the comedians. But that was concerning to me. And what I found when we started honing in on Discord was people are leaving Facebook because they don't want the digital outside of the problems with Facebook,
right?
They don't want the digital trail. Nobody's on Facebook. Like nobody is organically using Facebook daily.
Yeah.
And so the Facebook group for this community, mind you, everybody's aunts are in Facebook groups about like Baby Yoda memes and they're popping off. But at least our community isn't on there anymore. And so people aren't like, it doesn't serve any virtue. It's not being fed to them because they're not on it to begin with. And so Discord, going back to that I Can Has chat where we were talking about the pros and cons between Geth Heads and the I Can Has chat people love because they could make their name anonymous.
Right.
It hones into that beautiful anonymous aspect too. There's a lot of crossover between TCGS, beautiful anonymous, CGP, CGP pod, all of this. People loved I Can Has chat because they can make their name. Yours is more along the names, Emily Pineapple, but you could make your name.
It is
Thrill
it does
House.
Feel like a mask for me.
Yeah.
To be honest, like a big part of, like I said, in my fucking improv class, when my face is in front of people, I freeze.
That's for
a lot of reasons. Mostly, I'm afraid I look like I'm in pain, but I've always been like that. Yeah. So that's just the thing my brain is telling me now, and the being able to be behind a mask, the
anonymity.
Anonymity.
Oh,
anonymity.
Don't make me say it.
You're
You're absolutely right because you have the private chat if you wanted to talk about something. You have the level of anonymity
of the name. No one sees your face. No one sees.
Clicking on your name does not go to a Facebook profile that you've had since your senior year of high school or whatever. To show a whole history of your shit, to show where you work, to show your mutual friends that you're a part of this group. So that's one of the things that we recognized early on that would be a virtue of the Discord is that it could be that pro of the I Can Has chat where it's just like anybody can. That's where we're talking about the barriers to entry.
Yeah,
you can log on to Discord if you find that link, chrisgeth.com/live or wherever somebody sends it to you or whatever. You click it. If you don't have a profile already, easy to set one up. You're there, and boom, boom, boom. You have the confidence that this thing isn't tracking your details. It'll track whatever it does track. Let's not pretend that it doesn't. Everything on the internet does.
Right, yeah.
But you have the confidence that it's not going to show everybody your baby pictures.
Yeah, that's important.
I think people feel more like they can be themselves when they're anonymous. Yeah. It's sort of like you could torture a man and then you'll find out who he truly is, or you can just give him a mask.
You took that to a real weird place.
Well, I think about
I see what you're
that Firefly
doing.
episode where they tort the guy who's like, that emperor, and then there's also the Joker. The Joker knows who your friends really is.
Is the experiment where they had people pushing a button and then there's a scream in another room? Is that relevant to this too?
It is. I suppose
we're just throwing a lot of examples out. I just want to throw out.
It's relevant in that they were able to increase the people who did elevate it the most were people who could not see the person who was screaming.
They didn't have the empathy from looking at them.
Yeah, and had a person who appeared to be an authority very close to them watching them do the thing. So if they put a dude in a lab coat next to them and they couldn't see the person, that's when they would end up going up further. Most people didn't, and a lot of people lied.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people were like, yep, I totally increased that and did not. Yeah. And then left and were like, I need to call the police.
So there's the two sides of the anonymous nature of it is that, like you're saying, people could feel more open to being themselves.
Which I think a lot of the Gethard community finds. We have a lot of fucking queer people and it feels good. It feels so good to hear people say my friends, my family, they don't see me as the screen name that I am here. And I feel...
And they know that
I feel so special.
Their relative, whoever it is, they know that relative isn't going to stumble into this Discord.
Right.
Nope. They're not going to see that. Yeah. And that everyone here will radically accept them for whoever they present themselves as, because that's all there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other side to that I was getting to is people could feel more open to being themselves, and then people could also, through the anonymous nature of it, just be complete dicks. And we've had that, and we've either curbed it or removed it or what have you. So there's two aspects to the anonymity, and that I think is part of that like beautiful anonymous crossover, right? Is that somebody through that veil of anonymity is able to have a very open conversation with Chris, because their boss is never going to hear this podcast that a comedian does where that person's name is never mentioned. They might be able to discern it if somebody forwards it to them, but they're not going to find it on their own account, you know? So that's the element that you're talking about too, of like people can be more open because it doesn't say Joe Schmo or whatever. But then somebody could come on and just crank call us and we'll handle it however it needs to be handled. But
I think that's so interesting. I'm not sure how long we have been talking, but I am.
Feels like a long time. And I feel bad.
Oh, no.
I'm feeling bad. I'm like, I feel like I'm doing what I did to Chris, where I'm just like, no, but I have questions.
Oh no, go at it, because literally I'm just driving back to be with niece and nephews. Everybody's my niece and nephew. Everybody's a niece or nephew of mine, but there's 3 particular ones that are biologically.
Very, very sweet.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining us on this, for going through our watching that episode of TCGS number 14. The drawing episode.
The drawing pictures episode.
The drawing pictures episode. And then this really interesting extended conversation about online communities.
And I love that this was the episode because it all dovetails really nicely, because that topic is, what experiences have you had online? Have you had a bad experience? Have you had a good experience? And yeah, it worked out real well.
We had a good one.
Great experience.
We've had a good one.
Yes.
I think it's really beautiful, and I think that it has a lot of value, at least for me personally, and I think that it can be used so interestingly, and I don't know that it necessarily is. I haven't seen
the internet in general or Planet Scum.
The infrastructure of Planet Scum and the infrastructure of communities around media.
Yeah,
and that creating shared experience, and I think that's the power of like Game of Thrones, and all of these people are trying to capture that shared experience feeling between viewers. In different ways. But I think that when it's a corporation, when it's a big ass media company, the results are very different from a thing that is pretty outside the realm of capitalism.
Yeah. I'll say Planet Scum, because this was a question that came up recently. Somebody was like, with the talk of like, if the show ends whenever that would happen, who knows? But if the show were to end, somebody was like, would the Discord be deleted? And I can confidently say, because only Jess and I have the ability to do anything with it, that we're not going to delete the Discord, even if the show ends. What I would personally like to see is, if CGP didn't exist, I would love to see it become still still within that comedy venue aspect, but I would still love it to support comedy in some way, just because that is the common denominator for everybody, right? It's its own community, and it can still be its own community outright while still supporting comedy. So if the show were to end, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I would love to see it still support in some ways comedy, even if CGP wasn't it. So
well, I'll watch Joe Pera.
Yeah, something like that, or like, even if it's just still trying to get comedians to come in, and even if it was just we've got a plugs thread over here, and everybody's not necessarily in New York, but not every comedian is necessarily in New York either. So, just open it up. If CGP were to end, again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, I would love to still see it support comedy in some way.
That would be great. Yeah, that'd be a real cool legacy too for CGP to have brought all of us together through Planet Scum. And
if it still
comedy
could be, because I imagine that like it's fairly popping off for, as we're not a huge community, but we're a more active community, because other people have come in and pointed that out. So at the very least, I see it as like, if another comedian has a project, we're some eyes that would want to see it to begin with. So
anyway,
that would be incredible. Thank you so much, Bryson.
Yeah.
You got it. You'll
for
keep thanking me,
hanging
and then
with
I'll
us.
tell another long story.
I want your stories. Tell me the stories.
I have to go back on Discord and explain my high school meat club to everybody now because that made everybody really confused. And then I got on the road to drive here, and it
High
was an
School
hour.
Meat Club.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on Discord.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on the Discord. If you want to find out what Bryson's High School Meat Club was, come on to Planet Scum at chrisgeth.com/live.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. You feel me, baby?
Feel me, baby. You feel me, baby. I think that's the most fun thing for me has been
Daddy Suave.
finding all these weird ass fucking comedians. I'm a person who craves like the feeling of a weird authentic experience. Like I've always sort of felt like what I've been fed by the media is like not the real deal, man. It's like not what's really going on, man. I don't know what really is going on, but I just have this feeling, man. And so I mean that's what draws me to public access to video, VCR Party Live, those sorts of things. And this like tiny micro community, I wish there were more of them. I wish that there were more micro communities.
Like this?
Humans used to live in communities of like about like 150 people.
That's about what Planet Scum is, I feel like, on active and in and out users. Yeah.
And I don't think that it's, I think that there's a value put to larger communities. There's this idea that like, oh, if your thing is good, a lot of people will like it. But that viewpoint is fed to us from the viewpoint of like, we need to make money off of everything.
Yeah, it's also through just advancements in general, a larger community is more possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's easier because there's cross-pollination between like, even if there were smaller communities around similar things, all of us would still want to be in those communities, you know?
Yeah.
If there was a Joe Pera Discord,
that'd be so cool.
The three of us would probably be in it.
Yeah.
So then it would just be like, why isn't there just one big Discord for CGP, Joe Pera, whatever?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that those are the only two things, but
there's
lacking the examples.
And it's cool getting a much broader audience in terms of like location who still has the sensibilities that are so specific.
Yeah.
But because like I've liked a lot of sort of live stage shows here. Like there was one that I used to go to called Oakland Nights Live that was TCGS reminded me of when I first saw TCGS.
Okay.
But that was about 15, 20 people sometimes, and it was all very just
attending was 15 to 20
and
people.
And it being so local.
Yeah.
Changed the character of it where you couldn't have like a cool Australian friend who also loved it and watched it with you. And I think that the internet having a comedy venue that spans the globe is very interesting and adds a lot of character to the community that I really appreciate.
We may have talked about this before. I'm going to do another long thing.
Ooh, tell us. Tell us your stories. Tell us your stories.
Early on, and I probably should hit on this selling point of CGP more maybe in like the social media, but one of the early selling points was like, this is a place to see underground comedy that you're not going to see elsewhere in mainstream, most certainly, but you know, it's still wildly different from anything else you're going to see on the internet, and that this was a place to see the comedy that is happening in underground venues in New York that are getting audiences of 15 to 20 people, but are good enough for a larger audience to enjoy, because the people that would otherwise be part of the 15, 20 that are down in that basement theater just live in Tucson, Arizona, you know? So, CGP is the place where you can go to a comedy show. And even if you're in New York, you don't have to get out of your pajamas.
Yeah.
Just watch us on Twitch, Which
is great if you have chronic illnesses.
There you go. It makes it more accessible.
I can participate.
It doesn't have to be like, it works for both the people that would want to consume that comedy. If this is your jam, if you trust Chris's curation, then you know that there's going to be something good and something different every Wednesday night. And if you live in Tucson, you can watch it. If you physically can't get to it and you're in New York, you can still, you have your goddamn phone in your pocket, you can watch it. And, I always thought about it speaks to me personally because I'm not in New York, so I can see it.
Yeah.
In addition to me, working on the show in the ways that I do. But the first thing I thought of is like, oh yeah, I have cousins in Montana. I'm not saying that they remotely would enjoy CGP. Yeah. I wouldn't bother to even make that assumption, but they don't have access to comedy at all live where they live.
Yeah. So
here's a link. Watch it at your most convenient possible way. So maybe that's something I need to hit on more, is like, this is the most convenient underground comedy show for you, I
definitely think that's part of the magic, is getting that blend of underground comedy and accessibility that's so rare, because often you don't even necessarily hear about the underground comedy show until it's over or after the fact and all that. And so getting it in an accessible form, I think is definitely the magic.
And what I was saying before is like, it makes it easier for the people that would be into that sort of comedy. It also makes it easier for the comedians who are trying to sell the fact that, hey, I've got a show that's at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night in a venue on a specific side of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not necessarily going to be able to get people to go to that show. Mind you, if you were doing a comedy show, you wouldn't do it at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night in Manhattan. But it remains the same that, like, you see comedians, if you follow them on Instagram or whatever, you're seeing them constantly post show posters and say, like, I've got this thing. And I know from friends of mine in LA that run comedy shows, we'll push and we'll push and we'll push. So we got the stand-up show, and sometimes it'll be very lightly attended. Mm-hmm. It's a great show. Mm-hmm. We've packed out the place before. Some weeks, for whatever reason, it'll just be lightly attended. In LA, it's usually because it's kind of cold outside. And I don't want to go to your backyard stand-up show, right? It's too chilly. But, if that was accessible to people online, that poppin' where it's usually packed to the rafters, it can be packed to the rafters virtually, So, anyway.
Burning Man was the big enemy of comedy shows here.
Really?
Whenever it's Burning Man, San Francisco gets emptied out.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
When we went to underground shows more.
Coachella was LA's version of that.
Yeah.
Outside Land does that too.
There's
a little less.
I've got a this is so not about TCGS or CGP at this point. I have a friend that did a backyard comedy show, and I bartended it. The bar is still in the back of my car. But they started just not running shows November through February.
Yeah.
Because nobody in LA goes to a backyard comedy show during the cold.
Makes sense.
And so it would be like, we've got a really good show. And it was like a female run comedy show where the diversity slot would go to a straight white man, like, it was a good fucking show.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, it was always a solid lineup, and you would see people that, back to back that you wouldn't see. And it's like, oh, this is such a good show. And it was in such a cute venue in LA. And those months people wouldn't go just because it's too cold.
Huh.
And it's just like, fuck. Did heat lamps for a while. That didn't work out. Anyway.
And luckily with CGP, you can watch underground comedy by your heater.
Yeah, right by your heater. Stay warm, stay toasty, get under a blanket.
Yeah, have some nice hot chocolate.
When it's done at midnight, if you're on the East Coast, go to bed. Yep. You don't have to take an hour to get back to Queens or whatever.
And you can spend that hour in the CGP after party on Discord.
Very true. And I highly recommend being a West Coast fan.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful.
So great. It's so great.
Oh. I can go to bed. Even doing the after show, I can go to bed at a reasonable time.
You just pissed off everybody in the Discord that's from the East Coast.
I'm so sorry, everyone. And I really
everybody in your after show that's
like,
I'm trying to stay up to listen to your after show.
And we appreciate
it. No, so appreciate. So ridiculously appreciate. And I hope that it's adding value to your life.
It most certainly is. And I think
if
you're really
isn't,
stressing out the East Coasters because they're like, is Gethard going to show up for another 3-hour interview? So nobody wants FOMO, so they stick around just for the possibility that Carmen pops in to do something weird. So I think the after show's been definitely adding to, and pre-show most certainly.
Oh yeah, pre-show is great.
Pre-show is amazing.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wrap it up before I say another thing.
Yeah, I'm going to play the end song before we go on. Thank you all so much for listening. Please join us in the Discord. Please watch CGP at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time on chrisget.com/live and Twitch.
Or follow us on Twitch, baby.
Yeah,
Help
baby.
us game that system.
Game that system, baby.
Very, very excited for you guys to check the show out. Please let people know we exist. A very sad, dismal ending. Me and Ryan. You know what? Just gotta wake up. Just gotta wake up a little bit. That shit is terrible. But see how much negativity she's bringing every show? You let that happen in the middle of that. You know, you're trying to make some kind of, all right, why'd you fly me for this? This is stupid. Just hold on. I will do this in a minute. Good night to everybody on our live stream. Thanks for checking out the show. You guys really do it for. Spread the word. Find us right. There's fucking sad weirdos. So we hope sad weirdos watching it online enjoyed it. Have a great night. Maybe some